following is a production of Cary TV, the Town of Cary's government access channel.
Call to order the December 11th meeting of the Cary Town Council. And at this time, I'll recognize Councilmember Urha for our ceremonial opening. Mr. Urha.
Thank you, Mayor. There are two distinct parts to the ceremonial opening tonight. You indulge me. The first is something just learned recently, that tonight is an historic occasion. It's
right
historic.
up your alley.
Exactly. 25 years ago, it was during the December meeting in 1989. So it's a quarter century, silver anniversary of Jack Smith's first meeting as a member of this council.
Wow.
So I thought we just ought to recognize that with a little applause and a standing
Mr. Smith.
For 50 years, you get a gift. This was just an ovation. But the second part of the ceremonial opening is in keeping with the holiday season upon us. I'm going to share with you, if I may, a short poem that I wrote a while ago that we read from time to time at the Friends of the Page Walker Christmas holiday party. It relates to Cary's history, of course, but it's in the style of a well-known Christmas poem. It takes place on Christmas Eve in 1870, which is a year before Cary's official incorporation as a town. And it takes place at the Page Walker Hotel right next door. It deals with Frank and Kate Page, Cary's founding family. And if you remember from a few months ago, we mentioned General Samuel Cary, Cary's namesake. It talks about him as well. There's a lot of historical facts in here, but there's also a lot of poetic license to make it fit the season, so we may call it quasi-historical. Cary Christmas, circa 1870. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the hotel, not a sound could be heard save the old front desk bell. The Pages had just closed up shop for the night when a late arriving guest took them both by fright. Frank sent Kate home next door to tend to the kids. At this time there were 6, later 2 more. But back at the hotel, the guest signed in, and Frank noticed he wasn't a native Carolinian. "Hi, I'm Allison Page, but my friends call me Frank. And I'm Samuel F. Cary, General Cary, by rank. I'm just passing through on a speaking tour, heading home to Ohio in the morning, for sure." Frank asked the stranger what business he was in, and he replied, "My job is to save you from sin. Not all sins, mind you," he said with a wink. "Just one sin I care about, the evils of drink." Frank said, "Well, you won't find any alcohol here because I abhor all hard liquor and wine and beer." Well, the two hit it off, the Union General of yore and our Frank Page, the Southern entrepreneur. Kate brought over her famous pies, both pecan and mince, while the men discussed politics, business, and temperance. In the morning, after enjoying the breakfast of Kate's, Cary met the folks of the town, the Adamses, the Joneses, the Jordans, the Yates. But Sam had to leave as quickly as he came. "You won't forget me," they heard him proclaim. The visitor left behind no presents or holiday cheer, but a gift that would keep giving year after year. For as he boarded the train and it chugged out of sight, old Frank looked around him and muttered, "Cary, sounds right." Wishing everyone a blessed holiday season. Please rise, if you will, and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Yerhoff. We're now at agenda item 1.3, the adoption of our agenda. We have suggested changes for our agenda. The following items, at the request of the applicant, table item 4.3, owner-initiated annexation petition 14813 Triangle Brick Company, Louise Clayton. They wish to have additional time to address items. At the request of the applicant, remove the Weldon Ridge items 5.1 and 5.2 from the agenda and place these on the January 28, 2015 agenda. They also wish to have additional time to address items. Would council members like anything else pulled from the consent agenda for discussion? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the amended agenda.
So moved.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We're now at item 2.1. We're going to turn it over to our town manager, Mr. Shiver, to recognize our 2014 Employees of the Year. Mr. Shiver.
I ask that Wes Everett and Artie O'Brien join me at the podium, please.
Keeps calling me, and I thought I had it in my calendar, and I erased it, and I just, that's all. Who does?
I'll speak here. Do I need to be here or here?
They'll find you either way, I think.
Ed? Good. I'll stand over here then. Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. As the council knows, and many of our citizens know, each year the town of Cary holds a special event this time of year to recognize and celebrate the contributions of the town of Cary employees to our organization and to Cary citizens. Part of that celebration consists of the recognition of the town of Cary Employee of the Year, or in this year's case, Employees of the Year. The town has a long history of celebrating special employees in this manner. The first Employee of the Year was selected in 1989, and this tradition has continued for 25 years. This year, 18 exceptional candidates were nominated by their peers and Cary citizens for this honor. And I always like to say I take no part in this. It is separate from the manager's office. I don't even know exactly what the process is, and I never know the winners until they are announced at the employee luncheon. And I want to acknowledge and thank all those nominees that I just mentioned, the 18, for the exemplary service that led to their nominations. This is only the third time that co-winners will be recognized in the history of the program. I'm convinced that this is true for two reasons. First, the extraordinary quality of the 18 nominees made narrowing the field very difficult. And two, when two were left, it was just not possible to narrow it down any further. So the committee came up with the top two. Tonight, we recognize and honor Employee of the Year co-winners Wes Everett and Artie O'Brien. Wes serves Cary citizens as the Development Support Manager in the Development Support Division and has been with the town for 6 years in this and other roles. Those that nominated Wes state that with all customer interactions, He uses a calm and friendly demeanor, uses his strong leadership skills in every case, always shows respect for others, and uses a proactive approach to serving Cary citizens and other partners in developing or building in Cary. Artie is a senior police officer and serves as the staff duty officer. He has been with the Cary Police Department for 11 years. Those who nominated Artie praise him for consistently going above and beyond what is required and always doing what is right. It is consistently noted that he is always engaged with citizens and staff and always very thoughtful about situations that he encounters. He shows true customer service by taking the extra steps necessary to make sure that citizens and staff concerns are thoroughly addressed and make sure things are done in the right way. Both of these men not only meet but consistently exceed Town of Cary standards for excellent service to our citizens as embodied in the town's mission statement and statement of value. They set the example and they make me proud. So it is our honor and my personal pleasure to recognize and celebrate Wes's and Artie's selection as Employee of the Year for 2014 with these commemorative plaques to my left that we'll share in just a moment, so that everyone now and forever into the future will know of and remember your outstanding contributions to our organization and Cary citizens. So please join me in congratulating our winners. And I'll invite them to say anything that they'd like to say.
I just want to thank everyone for this award. It's a great honor. I get to work with some great people, and the competition, I'm sure, was hard for our choice for everybody. But I really appreciate everyone out here, supervision that I have, my coworkers, and all the departments in the Cary.
Again, thank you very much. I think Artie and I are proud to be representative of all the great staff that do a lot of good things every day. And I just want to thank you for the continued investment that you put in us so that we can help serve our citizens better. Thank you.
Mr. Ever and Officer O'Brien, thank you for all you do. The fact that you're selected in this, I consider one of the best towns, if not the best town in the state, as Employee of the Year says a lot about you and what you do. So thank you for your service, and God bless both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're now at item 2.2, and our Finance Director, Karen Mills, will present the 2014 financial report.
Good evening, Council. Excuse me. We are here tonight with our Audit Manager, April Adams from Cherry Becker, to present good news about the town's FY14 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. We'll briefly summarize the town's role in the audit process and address important results from the report. Ms. Adams will talk about the audit process and the results from their perspective. Before we dig into some of the details, I can tell you that we have another successful year both in terms of financial results and our accounting and reporting processes. The Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, also referred to as the CAFR, is the responsibility of the town of Cary. The CAFR summarizes our day-to-day financial transactions and complex record keeping that reflects the town's service to our citizens and our customers. And like Wes and Artie, we appreciate the support that you provide that allows us to record details throughout the year so that our audit report goes smoothly and we provide the transparent accountability to our citizens that we owe them. 3 positive reflections on the process include: 1, the lack of formal suggestions from the auditors for improvement, on-time submission to the state of North Carolina in accordance with their regulations, and a likely award again of recognition for excellence in financial reporting from our peers at the Government Finance Officers Association. The process and the results are thanks to outstanding staff around town who help us maintain this record-keeping system and accordance with the budget throughout the year, commitment to fiscal prudence and transparency. I'd also like to recognize two members of the Finance Department staff, Michelle Price, our controller, and Judy Donardis, our accountant, who worked tirelessly to get this report out on time in an accurate method. And they have a lot of expertise, and we should be very proud to have them in our department as well. To briefly discuss the financial results, I'd point out that the report reflects a $2.6 million increase in fund balance for general fund. And compared to the fact that we plan to decrease fund balance almost $17.2 million, this represents an actual result of $20 million better than budgeted. The final results came in as a result of $7 million in revenues better than budget. And while we always have to come in under budget for expenditures because our expenditure budget is a legal law and limit, not a target, our general fund positive variance for expenditures was $13 million, which was 9% of the expenditure budget. And if we turn to the utility fund, like the prior year, the utility fund earned $9 million in operations this year. Although we implemented rate increases to accommodate impending new debt for utility infrastructure, the consumption decrease actually offset the rate increase. Our utility revenues increased $3 million, but fell short of budget by $700,000. Like the general fund, the utility expenditures must come in under budget, and the budget variance there totaled almost $8 million, which was a 12.5% positive expenditure variance. Both the general fund and the utility fund operating results contribute to our strong financial position, which facilitates the maintenance of our AAA bond rating, future financial flexibility to continue to meet the needs of our citizens and our customers. For anybody that's interested in this report, it is posted online, like our budget document, and it's at the Cary Library. Ms. Adams will be speaking next. She has an obligation as an auditor under auditing standards, to present a summary of their responsibilities, to discuss any significant estimates that affected the financial statements, to discuss whether or not they had any difficulties preparing the audit opinion, and if they made any material adjustments to our financial statements. So I'd like to invite Ms. Adams to the podium now. She's our audit manager with the CPA firm of Cherry Beckert, and she'll make her presentation. After that, we'd both be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Good evening. I want to start out first, just thank you for the opportunity to serve as your auditors for this audit. I just want to briefly tell you what I'm going to go over, and then I'll go over it in detail. First would be the overview of just what the audit consists of. Second would be to identify the audit areas of focus and give you a high-level idea of the procedures that we performed over those areas. The third would be to review the actual results of the opinions, the internal controls, and the statutory compliance. Fourth would be to review those required communications that Karen just referenced, because you are charged with the governance of the town. And finally, with just some minor points over to conclude the presentation. The overview of the audit, I'm pleased to say that we have completed our audit of the financial statements for the town of Cary for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2014. We conduct that audit in accordance with 4 different sets of regulations and standards. The first would be the auditing standards generally accepted in the United States. These are probably the ones that everybody's more familiar with. These are done on any kind of entity that an audit is performed. The second would be the government auditing standards. These are performed on any government audit. The third would be the OMB Circular A-133. This is also known as the federal single audit portion, the regulations related to that, and then the State Single Audit Implementation Act, which is the state single audit portion. We want to remind you that the audit of the financial statements does not relieve management or those charged with governments of their responsibilities over the financial statements. Thankfully, all the records and information requested by Cherry Beckert during the course of the audit was made freely available for our inspection. Management and other personnel provided full cooperation. They're very quick to respond to our requests and inquiries throughout the audit, and that's very much appreciated. Got to turn around there. Next, what I want to go over is the audit areas of focus. When we perform the audit, we perform a risk-based audit, and what that means is that with the knowledge that we have of the town and its activities, that we determine based on that knowledge which areas have the greatest risk of being materially misstated, and that's where we focus our procedures of the audit. So the areas would be cash, and when we look at cash, we're looking at the reconciliations, and we're actually tracing those back to what the bank actually says that the town has. Investments, we're looking at those broker statements and making sure that those agree to the records, and then we're performing a third-party evaluation on those investments. For receivables, we're looking at the significant items and confirming those directly with the revenue sources. For capital assets, we're getting a roll forward of the activity from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, and making sure that the capital outlay reconciles to that. For accounts payable, we're performing a search for the unrecorded liabilities and determining that all the liabilities are properly reported. For accrued payroll, we're making sure that we do a predictive test to ensure that it's reasonable. For long-term debt, we're looking at the roll forward of activity from prior year to current year. We're confirming with the LGC that they have the same record of debt, and tying any additions or refundings to those official statements. For revenue, we're confirming the significant amounts of revenue directly with those revenue sources, such as Wake County, Chatham County. And then we're performing analytics over those to ensure that they're in line with our expectations. Expenses, along the same lines, we're looking at those analytically to ensure that they're in line with our expectations, along with changes that happened in the year. We perform the single audit, which is the test of the compliance with grant agreements and certain laws and regulations. Litigation is identified as a risky area, and so we discuss actual and threatened litigation with management and determine whether they're properly reflected in the financial statements. And finally, we're looking at management's judgments and estimates. The significant estimates included in your financial statements are the collectability of receivables, the useful lives used related to the capital assets, the incurred but not reported claims liability for the self-insurance plan, the law enforcement separation allowance liability, and the OPEB liability. The next item I want to cover are the results of the financial statements. These are on the financial statements themselves. There's an opinion given on that, and it was unmodified. This is otherwise known as the clean opinion. This is the highest level of assurance that we can give you as your auditors that the statements are materially stated. The results for the internal control over the financial statements, there were no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses noted. And the results for the statutory compliance, there's no instances of noncompliance noted related to the financial statements. The next opinion given was the opinion on the OMB A133 audit. Again, this is over the federal grants. The opinion given there was unmodified, otherwise known as the clean opinion. There were no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses related to internal controls noted, and no instances of noncompliance or other matters noted related to the federal programs that we audited. The last opinion given was the opinion on the state single audit. That opinion as well was also unmodified and otherwise known as the clean opinion. No internal control issues noted, so no significant deficiencies, no material weaknesses. The statutory compliance, there was no instances of noncompliance or other matters noted with that as well. So all of that is very good news. The next items I want to cover with you are the required communications. We are required as auditors to report these to you as because you're charged with the governance of the town. There were no adoptions of any changes in accounting principles that we noted during our audit. There were no material misstatements detected as a result of our audit that were required to be corrected by management, and there were no uncorrected misstatements noted other than those that are trivial. And also, there were no other matters that we felt like needed to be brought to your attention noted during the audit. So in conclusion, we do want to let you know that the town is financially sound as far as we're concerned, that the internal control environment is good. There are good policies and procedures in place, and we feel confident that they are actually being followed. And the administration of the federal and state dollars that you guys receive were administered in accordance with the requirements. And we just want to give another thank you to all the town staff that were involved in the audit. Their hard work and cooperation make it a smooth audit, and we're very, very, very much appreciative of that. And that's it.
Thank you. And Karen, I guess you're here to answer questions.
If you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them.
I can't imagine we have any questions, but I do want to say thank you for another year of excellence. You and your staff do a phenomenal job, and it really shows, and
Thank
we're
you.
very appreciative for you and your staff.
Thank you. We appreciate the support.
Thank you for making us look good.
Yeah.
No kidding.
We're now at item 2.3. This is the recognition of our Mayor Pro Tem, Gail Adcock. We're going to begin with comments by the Town Council, starting on my left with Mr. Urha, and work our way all the way down to Mrs. Adcock. And after that, we have a few more things to do. Mr. Urha.
This is going to be a classic example of mixed emotions probably tonight, I think, as we go down the line. This council has acted a whole lot like a family for a while. That's unusual for a council, and some people may think that's not the best thing in the world either, but personally I wouldn't have it any other way. And families don't always agree on everything, but what families do, they respect and value each other's opinions, or at least they should. And nobody has embodied that more than you, I don't think, Gail, since I've been on here, as far as respecting other people's opinions. When a family member moves out of the house or leaves town, they're sorely missed, but there's always a bond that's still going to exist to keep us together. And I think that's going to be the case here, because we're going to miss you at this table, but there's always going to be that connection. I know it. I can feel it. I want to thank you for what you did to me when I first joined the council, how you mentored me, those morning coffees at Starbucks. Very valuable, even though I'm not a morning person. I plodded through it, and really it was, now that I think about it, it was really a wonderful thing that you were able to do, to go out of your way to do that for me. More valuable than that has been your medical advice.
You all owe me
Especially
lots
your
of
age, huh, Ed?
I know. But, you know, like a family, everybody has a role. If we have a question about our car, we know who to ask. We have a question about a computer, we know who to ask here. We don't always understand the answer, but we ask. And when we have a medical problem, we know to come to you, and we still have your phone number. So be prepared for some of those questions. And the one thing I'm going to miss, tonight's a good example. I do a ceremonial opening. We always go down the line, and then it starts again at the other end. So Gail always follows me, and she always tried to one-up me all the time. The one time you used props, then you had the picture that you put up on the big screen. I never went that far, and I'm going to miss that. That was a lot of fun, that kind of friendly competition. I'm extremely proud of you, and I know you're going to do a great job at the legislature. And you're going to continue to have a real positive effect on Cary, because you're going to be representing us. You're going to be successful there if you have half as much of an impact on them as you've had on me as my friend. God bless you.
Thank you, Ed.
Well, since you already spoke to the whole family thing, did you read this before?
No, you had a family thing?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, it's a tough day for many of us on council, and the fact is, the reason it's a tough day speaks to not just you, Gail, but to the council as a whole. I think that is true, that we act like a family. We respect each other's opinions. We don't often agree, but we respect our disagreements. But more importantly, it speaks to the kind of person that you are. You're kind, fair, have integrity, you're thoughtful, compassionate, and articulate. And I would be remiss if I didn't say process-oriented. But there have been many times when you've kept us on the straight and narrow. I do see the kind arm that comes off and goes and touches Jennifer at the end of the game. Wait a second. I've seen that because I've experienced it as well. You have a smile at the end of the table. Generally, it's because I think I've said something that you were planning on saying, but then I hear you say it so much better after me and wish I had said that. You have an uncanny way of taking a problem or something that seems like an insurmountable problem and breaking it down into manageable pieces that we can all work through. You have that Southern charm and sayings that I still don't understand. And even when you're disagreeing with someone, because of your Southern charm, we still think we're winning. And it normally ends with bless your heart. Yeah, bless your heart. And finally, I'll miss your commitment to the health of this community. It's the fun that you inject into everything, from making us all put on Band-Aids to support flu shot season, bringing your mustache for Movember, and more importantly, the analogies that you bring that I won't forget, like first, do no harm. And it's something that I will always remember. It's part of your DNA. I think it's become part of ours. It's infected our thought processes in a good way, kind of like a virus, like shingles that you get, you'll have it for many years to come.
Wow, I love being compared to shingles. Thank you so much.
But to mostly paraphrase Gandhi, there are no goodbyes for any of us. Wherever you are, you'll always be in our hearts. It's not goodbyes. See you later.
That's right.
I think Mr. Urha said it well when he said family. And if I had to describe you, I kind of always looked at you as like a big sister.
Much older sister, yes.
I said big
At least
sister.
you didn't say mom.
Yeah, thank God.
No, I intentionally did not say mom. Even though there's a lot of motherly qualities about you, but big sister is kind of how I always look to you. You're that one person, just with our relationship, that we can always be open and honest with. But when I'm really struggling with something or there's an issue going on, whether it's town or personal, I know I could pick up the phone and call you and have an honest conversation about that. And I know sometimes I might not always want to hear what you have to say, but I appreciate the heck out of you that you're willing to say it and be honest and open and straightforward with me. I will always appreciate that, and probably will continue to call you on occasion, depending on what we're dealing with. When I just want to bounce something off somebody and get an honest answer, I know who to call. You're probably one of the most caring and compassionate people I've ever met. And I wish I'd had the pleasure of knowing you a lot longer in my life. I think we first met when we first ran together in 07, something like that. Never met Gail Adcock, but gosh, I'm so glad that I did. You've been a breath of fresh air. You're honest, you're open, you're a person of integrity, values. You're just good people, and I always believe that good governance begins with good people. And so we're all going to miss that. Cary's going to miss that. And while Cary's loss is North Carolina's gain, I still believe that Cary's going to be very well represented in the state with you as a member of the General Assembly. Not sure why you wanted to go there, but it's what you wanted to do, and we all know that when you set out to do something, you do it. That's what you do. You set goals in your life, and then you meet those goals, and then you go out and set more goals, because I don't know if you like meeting the goal more or the process that it takes to accomplish the goal. And I think that's something this council is going to really miss, is your focus on process, because we have our goals and we know where we want to go, but focusing on process is what enables us to get there, and that's what you have really brought to this council. When we all have these great ideas and vision, it's Gail saying, well, yeah, but there's a process on how we get there. Yeah, there's a process on how we do that. And darn if we don't listen to you and we follow the process and we meet that goal. So that will be sorely missed. Best of luck to you down in Raleigh. God, you're going to need it. Patience, patience, and patience. There are going to be times when you are going to be frustrated. And just be patient and know that you may not win every battle, but I think if you keep fighting the good fight, you'll eventually win the war. You're a strong person. I know you're not going to be discouraged easily. And I really hope that the rest of the folks in Raleigh know what they're getting ready to get.
Probably not.
And if you ever need anything from us, if there's ever anything we can do to help, please call. I know you will, but just I wanted to say it. Just I'm going to miss the hell out of you. I mean, God. But best of luck to you. I love you. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Don.
And as it comes down the line, it gets tougher and tougher not to repeat. Poor Jennifer.
She's up to it.
We checked you off all the way there.
I'm just going to hug you. There you go.
I'm like, first of all, not only has things been said, but if you hadn't read Don's blog about you,
Actually, my husband pointed it out to me. And
that was really good.
He's-
I'm like, I wish I'd have said that. That was really, really good. I just want to reflect on my time with you. I agree with everything that's said so far in spades. We spent a lot of non-council time together, and we've become good friends, and it's going to be tough not to have you around to sit down and have these tough conversations. How do I handle this problem? And you have a wealth of knowledge, and you're a great leader, and you've helped me become a better leader, answering questions. And sometimes they're just extremely difficult situations, and I love the response. You go, Harold, you're just going to have to put on your big boy pants. I never will forget that phrase the first time I heard it. I was like, okay. But I do hope to continue working with you, and I can IM you at work. So
Yeah.
I still have access with you multiple ways, and I do hope to stay in touch with you. So it's not as much saying goodbye, because I feel that I'll be close to you, and I hope I still see you in the summer months.
Pool time.
Pool time. And, but words can't express how much you mean to me and this council for all that you've done and all that you're going to do. So thank you.
Thank you, Harold.
Well, you did check off all the things I was going to say.
Just say ditto.
What's a blog? Gail, I just met you when you first joined the council, and I can tell you that I used to think I understood process and was pretty good at it, and then I realized after you came here that I'm still in kindergarten. You're in postgraduate with process. You have taken it to a level that we needed, and applied a sense of common sense to it and all of that. And I think that's great. But you know, a lot of the accolades have been said, and I'm going to make it a little bit personal too. I remember when you got on, and I said, "Oh, here's another one I got to train. You know, another rookie on the council." And I better meet with her right away and make sure she understands the ropes. Well, the first thing is, we met in the morning, and as you had, I am not a morning person, so she immediately got
The upper hand.
She got the upper hand. And what was so refreshing is the candor of the conversation, the honesty of the conversation, and how productive it was. It didn't become something that was a we and they. And Harold, I don't think you were the first person that got labeled with that big boy pants, because I really jumped on her on something, and she said, "Well, what are you doing about it?" And I said, "Well, I'll do something." And she said, "Well, why don't you put on your big boy pants and get something done?" So the point is, you had a way of giving great feedback and deflecting it with that charm that is a true Southern trait, based, you know, with the ingredients of just a downright, genuine, caring, nice lady. And I know I've become a stronger person professionally and personally from the advice and guidance I got from you. So thank you very much, Gail.
Thank you, Jack.
I'm just going to hug you. See, that's the advantage I get by sitting here.
We're all going to do this.
And by the way, she
I
reaches
know.
out and touches my arm like, wait a minute, too.
I've had a really good time sitting next to you. I really feel privileged that I got to have that opportunity. And, you know, everything has really been said, but there's still a little bit more. I mean, I'd say that what you've heard resoundingly is that we've all grown and learned from you. And I will never forget the first time I ever met you. Because all of you out there who don't know much about the politics here, if you're in the same party, you might really know the person who's running. But if you're in a different party, you really don't get to know each other until after the person takes office. And I remember our first conversation, and you said, I want people to be upfront and honest with me. If you have a problem with me, tell me. If you have a problem with someone else, don't tell me. And I just loved that. And I think that you know, from the outside, people see you as being a real firecracker, and you are. You're strong and you're fearless. And that you've channeled it so well for the town of Cary, taking on things that a lot of people might be intimidated to do for our town, but you've done it. And you've given, and what most people don't know, and I'd like to just share in case you haven't picked up on this already, is that the two things that I think really define Gail is her care and candor. And you are such a caring person, and you've shown that care not just for the citizens of Cary, but for all of us. And every step of the way, even when we've had some of the harder discussions, you have always taken it from a position of concern for each of us, and that is so appreciated, so appreciated. And I would just hold you up as an example of a great, strong leader. The traits that you carry, the candor that you have, any difficult thing, you can go to Gail and you'll get the honest answer. And that's very hard for a lot of women to do. You know, they always want to kind of dance around it, and, you know, but you know that the most kind thing you can do is to be honest. And I've always appreciated that. And you have been such a mentor to everybody on this council. So I'm excited for you going on to the State House. And somebody recently said to me, oh, they didn't know Gail. And they said, oh, poor Gail, she's going to get the tiniest office. I was like, yeah, that's not going to hold her back. That is not a big deal whatsoever. You're going to just take it by storm. And I'm really thankful that the town of Cary has you as our representative. And I can't wait to visit you in your tiny office.
Yes, we'll step into the hall and have a meeting.
You're going to do great, but you're going to be sorely missed here. And I think that you've really established a great culture for this town, for its leadership. And even though Gail's going, I think that culture that she's established is going to go on forward. So I think you've left your mark.
Thank you. Wow. Okay, so let's just say ditto and amen. And it's cool to get the last word. I actually kind of like this. So I thought so much about this for the last 5 weeks. And rather than take the chance that I would miss saying something that was very important to me, I wrote it down. But it all comes from the heart, because I have been, these thoughts have been in my head and my heart for a long time. I just want to say I'm leaving much heavier than when I arrived 7 years ago, as a green as grass council member with a 90-degree learning curve. For that first year, I felt like everything was new to me. The learning curve was straight up. Luckily, the heaviness I'm talking about is really not about my weight, thank God. And I'm not talking about a heavy heart either. My heart's at peace, because I know that I'm leaving Cary in excellent hands. And more about those hands in just a bit. The heaviness I'm actually referring to is the sheer weight and magnitude of the gifts that I've been given over 7 years by the 6 members of this council, town staff, and the citizens throughout the town, especially those of you in District D. Sorry, I've got my back to you. Be sure and get that on camera now. For anyone who just typed breach of ethics into their search engine, let me be clear that I'm not talking about this kind of gift. The gifts I've been given aren't bought, but they are homemade. They are not purchased with great thought or on a whim. They are the results of cumulative, repetitive actions. First, I want to thank District D residents for electing me to council twice. First, when I had no record in elected office, and again 3 years ago when I did. Electing me the first time was an act of faith on your part, and re-electing me was an incredible act of trust. Your trust has been the best possible gift that I could receive. I've endeavored to always deserve it, and I'll treasure it always. So I wasn't going to do this. Collectively, town staff has given me the capacity as an adult to once again experience childlike awe and wonder. I have been awed at your depth and breadth of knowledge and expertise, your willingness to share your true selves, your ability to work within today's realities, yet eagerly look ahead and continue to see unlimited possibilities. Your excitement and your energy for what you do, and your professionalism. Commitment to this is evident in everything that you do. To feel awe and wonder is wonderful at any age, and you'll notice I'm not going to mention mine. The day-to-day routine problems and mundaneness of life, of the real world, don't typically promote awe and wonder. Thank you for returning this ability to me. What an incredible gift to take with me wherever I go. And now to the gifts from my council colleagues. You know, being a council member allows each of us an insider's view that people don't see on television. Beyond what the public sees during televised meetings and attendance at open to the public work sessions, community meetings, and other public events, we carpool to meetings like the annual retreat. Those are some great rides. And other events, we share time before, between, and after meetings. We have conversations over coffee or a beer, and we spend up close and personal time in closed sessions. And all of these times have allowed me to see all of you impassioned, exhausted, giddy, compassionate, angry, vulnerable, transparent, and really hungry. I mean, that candy basket gets hit really hard in closed session. We all need sugar. 7 years of these kinds of opportunities have given me the certain knowledge that the 6 of you are honest, hardworking, intelligent, fun-loving, and caring people. And as hard as it was to narrow it down to just one gift that you've each given me, that's what I've attempted to do, and I'm going to start with our senior member. Jack, you've given me the gift of rhythm. And I'm not talking about dancing or Catholicism. I just had to, I get to say anything I want to tonight. You are a role model for how to live a full life while incorporating a quarter century of public service. You pace yourself. You've established a rhythm that just keeps you humming along. I strive to emulate your quiet, sustained ability to do this. You have an internal engine as powerful and large as your heart. Okay, this word gets hard. Jennifer, my gift from you is gracefulness. I have marveled at your ability to offer sharp critiques on issues while acknowledging hard work and good intent and suggesting a path to success. I will need this gift a lot, I'm sure, and I will reflect on the many times that you've modeled gracefulness for me. Lori, timing is the gift I've received from you. I will use this gift as you have to make an incredible impact on the issues that you are most passionate about. You've turned many discussions in a new way with your ability to time the release and use of your expertise and passion. And boy, do I need the gift of timing. Thank you so much. Don, your gift to me is clarity. This one gift includes the ability to provide a reality check, called the BS meter, you know, a willingness to reflect on the real world, zero hesitation about cutting to the chase, and always knowing what you value and who you are. I will use this gift, as you have done, to keep myself true to what is at my core. Ed, from you I've received 360-degree vision. You just have this uncanny ability to look through the windshield and use the rearview mirror effectively at the same time. Your ability to always view the future through the lens of the past is a true gift. History is what makes us who we are. You never miss a chance to demonstrate, usually through riveting stories, and tonight a poem, how valuable this gift really is. And I want to end with the mayor. Harold, among your many gifts to me, the one that I value and cherish the most is fearlessness. You are an all-in mayor. You serve tirelessly with a glad heart, total sincerity, and a desire to nurture others, encouraging all of us and others to grow and let others take the lead along with you. You are not afraid to loosen the reins and allow others to use their leadership skills and grow their potential. I have so enjoyed being your Mayor Pro Tem. You are the epitome of a servant leader. I will continue to use your gift as a standard for behavior and how to treat others. Thanks to each of you for each of these gifts and for the many others that time prohibits me from describing. You know what they are as well as I do. One of the best things about these gifts is that you know I'll never seek to return them. And I can think of no better tribute to all of you than to promise to re-gift them. It has been my honor to serve with you, and I will miss each of you more than I can say. Thank you.
Hearing aid batteries. Somebody's talking to me. Let me. Murphy's Law. And not batteries.
Okay, don't put tissues away yet. We're not quite done. On behalf of the Town Council, I present the following resolution honoring Cary Town Council member and Mayor Pro Tem Gail Adcock for her devoted service as Cary Town Council member. Whereas Gail Adcock and her family have lived in Cary since 1993, she has tirelessly served her community as a Cary Town Council member since 2007. During that time, she has served as Mayor Pro Tem from 2011 through 2014. And whereas Gail's passion to assist people is unmistakable, both in her professional career as a healthcare provider and in her elected capacity as a Cary Town Council member. And whereas Gail's expertise with parliamentary procedure and her focus on process of the business of the town has been invaluable in helping maintain calm and poise during sometimes contentious discussions during meetings. Whereas Gail's genuine concern and respect for those with whom she serves on the Town Council will be deeply missed. Whereas while on the Town Council, Gail has served in numerous national, state, regional, and Cary-specific capacities, including Cary Planning and Zoning Board Liaison, Cary Marsville Joint Issues Committee, Metropolitan Mayors Coalition, Metro Mayors Board of Directors, Triangle J Council of Government Regional Mayors and County Chairs, Campo Executive Board, Triangle Mobility Action Partnership, Triangle J of Government's Center of the Region Enterprise, Blue Ribbon Task Force on State Health Plan for Teachers and State Employees, North Carolina Board of Nursing, North Carolina Center of Nursing, Legislative Study Commission on Access to Health Insurance, North Carolina Health Planning Commission, Special Voter Registration Commission, and Wake County Board of Elections.
Wow.
Whereas Gail's service as a Cary Town Council member sunsets on December 31st of this year, 2014, and Gail's service on the North Carolina State House Representative for District 41 dawns on January 14, 2015. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the entire Cary Town Council acknowledges and appreciates her good communication skills, her strong work ethic, her open-mindedness and ability to bring different viewpoints to the table to work out solutions, and her passion and zeal to serving to strengthen and enhance the quality of life for everyone who calls Cary home. The council wishes Gail much success in her new role as North Carolina State Representative. We recognize and applaud her hard work, dedication, and accomplishments as a Cary Town Council member, which have truly made Cary a better place. We look forward to working with Gail in her capacity as a state representative, and we are confident that she will continue to work hard to improve the quality of life for residents in Cary and all of North Carolina. Furthermore, the Cary Town Council extends to Gail and her family its best wishes and hopes for much happiness as Gail begins this new chapter in her life of public service as a North Carolina State House Representative, adopted this 11th day of December 2014. This is a resolution. I need a motion to approve it.
So moved.
Second.
Unanimous. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is unanimous. And we have a little party.
Just pay me all the money you earn for all that free healthcare advice and I'll be good. Oh, gracious. Oh, that's so cool. Second thing that's going up in my office. First thing is the picture of all of us at my victory party. You know, they all came to my victory party, and it was one of the most wonderful pictures of the 7 of us. We all look happy and joyful, and I'll treasure it always. Thank you so much. On to business.
Okay, we have one more order of business to deal with Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah.
We need a motion to accept Mrs. Adcock's resignation effective December 31st, 2014.
I'm doing it.
Nobody's jumping at this motion, I see.
I can move it myself.
No one's going to.
No one's going to second it.
It'll die for lack of a second. I got a feeling there are a few voters who disagree. I'll move that you accept my resignation letter.
And I'll second it.
Thank you, Mayor.
Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed,
No.
motion carries.
Crazy, right?
Best of
Crazy
luck.
girl.
We're going to miss you.
Well, you know what? I said I'm just going on the state payroll, but I'm still going to work for Cary. So don't worry about that.
There you go.
All right. We now move to our third item, which is Public Speaks Out. Our next agenda item, we have included instructions for speaking at this forum on the printed agenda. And if you'd like to speak, please take a seat in the rows to my right that are shown as reserved and follow the instructions on the agenda. Public Speaks Out speakers have up to 3 minutes for their comments, and speakers may speak on any topic as long as it's not a public hearing topic. There's a 3-minute time limit that I will strictly enforce to be fair to all of our speakers. We have a timer located on the podium. And when the green light turns yellow, that means you have 30 seconds remaining. And when the yellow light turns to a flashing red light, at that point I will interrupt you, not trying to be rude, but trying to be fair to all of our speakers and ask you to immediately conclude your comments. I thank all of our speakers in advance for adhering to the 3-minute time limit. And we ask that if you're with a group, please have one spokesperson for that group to reduce the repetitive comments. I thank everyone in the audience for respecting that this is a business meeting. Please do not applaud or make remarks from your seat or anything else that might distract from your meeting, from this meeting. So now's the time for Public Speaks Out, and I would invite the first speaker forward.
Mayor and members of the Town Council, I'm John Shaw from Cary. Thank you for the Aquastar water meters and for the capability of getting an hour-by-hour reading on my water usage. Recently, shortly before I was going to go out of town for a week, I noticed that I had been using water during the night when I was asleep, and then also when I wasn't home. So because of that, I realized that I had a leak. I looked around and found in a bathroom that was sort of out of the way and hard to hear from other areas of the house. In the toilet, there was a very small leak causing a small amount of water to go all the way down into the drain. So I was able to very quickly and inexpensively fix that. Now, that was a very small leak, but as we know, very often small leaks turn into big leaks. Had I not found that out and gone out of town, very likely it would have turned into a big enough leak for it to affect my water bill, and I wouldn't have been able to do anything. I wouldn't have even known about it until I got back home. But because of the Aquastar system, I was able to detect the leak before it became big and before it became a big problem. Now, one thing I did very early when Aquastar was first put in was set an alert. For 1 gallon, I get an email. Now, obviously, when I'm home, I use more than 1 gallon, so every morning when I get up, I can look at my email and see how much water I used the day before and know that if that's in the range that I expected. I can then also look at the hour-by-hour report online on the web. And by looking at the time and the usage, correlating the two, I can tell how much water I use during certain activities, such as showering and washing clothes and things like that. I'm looking forward to the time that my electric meter and my gas meter also have similar capability. I hope that will happen before too long. So again, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shaw. Next speaker for Public Speaks Out.
Good evening to the mayor and town council. My name is Al Cohen, and I'm here just to make an announcement. We have an opportunity this year to work with the city and the MLK Task Force this year for the MLK Dreamfest weekend. And we have the opportunity to bring in one of the members of the King family this year, which is Naomi King, which is the sister-in-law of the late Dr. Martin Luther King, the wife of his brother. And we're holding the event on the 17th of January at the Cary Theater. And she will be coming in with a documentary, chronologizing the life of her late husband and her brother-in-law. And she also wrote a book entitled Two Brothers That Dared to Dream, a book about the late Martin Luther King and her husband working side by side together in the civil rights movement. So we just want the town to fully be aware of that event, because it's a real historical event, I believe, to have a living legend and a member of the King family come and grace the city during the MLK Dreamfest week. So we just want you to be informed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Next speaker, please.
I just need some clarification before I speak. Are you saying that there's not going to be any public speaking on the agenda that you have for the 14A17 and the 14REZ33? Are we not allowed to speak?
Trying to figure out which items you're speaking about.
Public hearing.
The Weldon Ridge?
Yeah. No.
That public hearing has...
The Herndon.
Oh, the Herndon, there will be a public hearing for the Herndon property.
So we can speak to
Yes,
that.
and you'll have 5 minutes instead of 3.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
No, I'm going to speak.
If you'd like to speak on a topic that's not the Herndon property, you may speak on that now.
No, so I have to wait till that comes up
Okay.
then. Okay, I
Thank you.
apologize.
No problem. Next speaker for Public Speaks Out. Anyone else for Public Speaks Out? Seeing no one, will close Public Speaks Out and we'll move to the consent agenda portion of tonight's meeting. For the benefit of the people watching on TV, I'm going to take a moment to review our consent agenda items. One vote approves all of these items. On the consent agenda we have minutes, tax reports, local firemen's relief fund board reappointment, ratification of resolution for the following: Green Level High School, Parkside Town Commons Phase 2C, and the Brickyard. Bid award for rear loading refuse truck. Calendar year 2015 meeting schedule. Fiscal year 15 street improvements project. Pink Acres Street petition for water and sewer service. Contract award for the Plumtree Tank modification project. 2015 North Carolina legislative agenda. Is there a motion to approve approve all of these consent agenda items?
So moved.
There's a motion.
Second.
And the second. Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And that now takes us to public hearings. At the request of the applicant, council removed the Weldon Ridge items from the agenda. We'll hear these on January 28th. And the applicant wished to have additional time to address these items. We're now at the public hearing for the Herndon property. And the same rules that applied for Public Speaks Out apply for public hearings, with one exception. Speakers now have 5 minutes instead of 3. We're going to take a public hearing on 2 items here: the annexation petition and the rezoning. So it's annexation petition 14A17 and rezoning 14RZ33. We're going to allow the applicant to explain the request, and we're going to conduct a public hearing. Before that, we're going to have the staff introduce it, and tonight Ms. Bierman is introducing this item. Ms. Bierman.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is the public hearing on the request to annex and apply initial county zoning to about 16 acres located at the intersection of Turner Creek Road and NC 55 Highway. This was the subject of a previous rezoning request. That request went through the process in 2012, 2013, and it was withdrawn in February of 2012. February of 2014. In August of this year, the applicant or the property owner did request a waiver of the 1-year time limit to resubmit, made some significant changes to the request, so that request is before you this evening. This is a vicinity map that shows the property. You can see NC 55 Highway. This is the Chesney Glen subdivision adjacent to the north side of the property, and to the west is the Harmony subdivision. This shows the annexation map where you can see the properties in yellow that are currently in the town limits. The existing zoning on the property is R40 and Highway District in Wake County. The uses that are currently allowed in these districts include various residential, public, civic, and commercial uses on the Highway District portion of the site. On the residential 40 portion of the site, there are various residential uses and certain public institutional uses that support residential use. The proposed zoning for the site is transitional residential conditional use. There are a number of proposed zoning conditions. These include limiting land use to detached dwellings. There would be a maximum of 48 dwellings, which is a minimum of, or a maximum of 3 units per acre. The applicant is also offering a 100-foot building and parking setback along the northern boundary. And other setbacks included in the zoning conditions include front setback of 18 feet, side setback of 5 feet, and a rear setback of 20 feet. These setbacks are similar to the standard setbacks required in the transitional residential district, with the exception that the side setback in the traditional TR district is 3 feet instead of 5. And in the TR district, the combined front and rear setback is 35 feet with a minimum rear setback of 3 feet. So the setbacks were similar, but with some modification to be more restrictive. Also, the zoning conditions include that northbound turn lanes onto NC 55 would be prohibited from the site access point, and that also there could be a leftover movement for northbound traffic on NC 55 highway, subject to approval by NC DOT and the town of Cary at the time of the site plan review. With regard to the land use plan, this is in the southwest area plan. The plan designation is MDR, medium density residential, which supports 3 to 8 units per acre. The request is for 3 units per acre, so it is within the range at the lower end. Also, there is a note on the northwest area plan that calls for a 100-foot separation from any medium density residential along the northern property line, and that is addressed with one of the zoning conditions that the applicant has offered. This map shows stream buffers and floodways as currently shown on Cary's GIS maps. There is a small stream buffer area shown on the northern portion of the property. The field determination of this would be made at the time of the subdivision or site plan review. According to Cary's Parks and Greenways plan, there are no street side trails or greenways existing or proposed in the immediate vicinity. With regard to the Cary's transportation plan, NC 55 highway is a major thoroughfare. Wanted to point out here, there is a right-of-way reservation across the adjacent property to the west that when the site is developed, there would be a connection made to that so that ultimately with the development of this intervening property, there would be connectivity made to a stub in the Harmony subdivision. With regard to Cary's transit plan, there is a triangle transit route on NC 55. This map shows properties that were notified of the public hearing. We did receive a couple of calls, inquiries asking about the project. Because this is an initial town of Cary zoning, the protest petition is not applicable. That concludes staff's comments. Following the applicant's comments in the public hearing will be available for questions.
Okay. This time I invite the applicant forward.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Jason Barron with Morningstar Law Group here on behalf of the applicant MI Homes, as well as the Herndon family. Don't need to give you all any history lessons. I wouldn't want to steal Mr. Urha's thunder on that front associated with this property, but you all recall it was the subject of a fairly contentious rezoning case that was seeking to do townhomes at a density significantly higher than what you all see tonight. The Herndons heard you all loud and clear. The last time that applicant was here on this case, the message was crystal clear, and they heard it. And when the property went back to market, they were looking for a builder who was going to essentially bring you all what you wanted to see on this site. And I believe last time around, Councilor Adcock said 3.1, so we're actually beating it by one-tenth of 1 unit, better than what she was hoping for last time. So it is 3 dwelling units per acre. It's detached dwellings. We're excited about the opportunity to move forward with the case. It is designated your ever popular medium density residential classification, and we're at the very low end of that classification. We've had a couple of meetings with the neighborhoods in the area. Those meetings have gone much better than last time around. We anticipate continuing to work with those folks to see what issues they might have with the case. But ultimately, we believe this is a case that stands on its own with respect to density and product type, and look forward to working with you all through the process. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the time for the public hearing for the Herndon property. We're talking about the rezoning and the annexation. And I would invite the first speaker forward. Move to your left, please. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jim Salenberg from 104 Berrybrook Court in Chesney Glen. I just wanted to try to get some clarification on the wording that the applicant provided, because in a community meeting I went to on September 23rd that he set up at, he stated that, let's try to get that they would support an 80-foot type A buffer at my house. My house is actually adjacent to the property, and it's all woods behind me. You know, it's been like that for 20 years. So, I mean, it's been great to have that, and I understand there's going to be building and stuff. So my concern was just the buffering and how it was going to be cleared and everything like that. And so, but then it says in the application that actually the north boundary will be a 30-foot type B semi-opaque type buffer. So that's sort of conflicts what he told me is it would be an 80-foot type A buffer. But then it also says in there that there would be a 100-foot, you know, I think in the submission, let me see where I get that. I think from the property line, you know, they talked about the 100 feet. So it's sort of confusing to me. I mean, what the 100 foot is from the property line, from where they build the homes or a parking versus the buffer. I mean, previously, when we were discussing the other property, the other applicant did provide an 80-foot buffer with a 20-foot landscaped area for privacy and stuff. So I would actually like to maybe understand from the applicant again. What he told me is different what his application is, so I have a concern with that right now. You know, I like what he's doing and everything, but I still am a little concerned about what's going to happen with clearing and stuff behind my property. My property, there's like 2 homes that are really going to be close to this. It's in the one corner. Everybody else will be pretty far. There'll be a pond and everything along that North Chesney Glen area. They won't be impacted, but I'm going to definitely be impacted the most because my house is so close to it. So anyway, I'd appreciate maybe the applicant at least to be able to help out and understand why he changed, you know, what he told me basically in the open meeting.
And we're not supposed to have a dialogue at this time, but I do want you to know, contact Ms. Bierman, or Ms. Bierman, if you can get his contact information, and let you know what the application is. At least you'll know that. And he could propose changes. That might be the difference you're hearing. He applied with one set of proposal guidelines, and then he's proposing additional changes. I don't know. But that's probably or maybe a solution. But the person to check with is staff first. They can tell you exactly what the application means, and any questions you have, they can answer it for you.
Right. Okay.
Okay? Thank you. Next speaker for this public hearing.
Good
Welcome
evening,
back.
Mayor. Thank you. And council members, I'm here to express my opposition.
Could you give us your name, please?
I'm sorry, Bonnie Skinner.
Thank you.
From 1705 Wakena Road. I'm here to express my opposition in the rezoning of the 14 REZ 3300 Burt property, case 14A17. At the council meeting held on November the 20th, the rezoning of case 14 REZ 08 on Wakena Road, which I am a part of, was tabled because of 2 issues, traffic and school capacity. This rezoning is very similar to ours on Wakena, and I have 4 points to bring to the council's attention. Our group did a comprehensive traffic study but one was not required for this rezoning. Does not this case also impact traffic? I would think any rezoning would impact traffic flow, and a study should be addressed, especially since it is located directly across the street from a school with severe traffic problems today. This rezoning is the medium-density residential dwellings, which is the same as the Joaquina rezoning property. Permitted uses for this rezoning is for 3 detachable single dwellings per acre, again, the same as our Joaquina rezoning property. However, this proposal is for a minimum lot size of 5,000 square feet, and ours is 8,000 square feet. Would not this rezoning also affect traffic and overcrowding of schools? My question to the council is, how could this rezoning be passed and not ours? Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight, and hopefully you will reconsider the rezoning of the Joaquina Road.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. My name is Vicki Burns. I am a resident or an owner in the Joaquina rezoning case, and I would like to say that the case tonight, the Herndon case, is located in western Wake County, which is west of Highway 55, just as we are, and it's located in an area that this council has identified as an area of concern at the town council meeting November 20th as it relates to schools. On November 20th, the council declined to vote, but instead tabled the rezoning of our Joaquina Road properties due to the impact that our proposed 130 single-family detached homes would have on Cary schools in the West Cary area, specifically middle schools. As I see it, this case is exactly as ours, with single-family homes, medium-density residential, and 3 units per acre in West Cary. According to the Wake County Public School System's 2013-2014 facilities utilization report, at least 3 middle schools in western Wake County are far below the utilization goal of 95%. East Cary at 68.9%, Lufkin Road at 80.9%, and West Cary at 78.9%. Why can't students in the West Cary area attend these underutilized schools, especially West Cary, where my son attended? Also, as published in an article by the News and Observer, May 26, 2012, this council voted down a plan by the Wake County Public School Systems that would have alleviated overcrowding at Panther Creek High School by moving first-year students to a temporary facility located near the school. Why would this council vote against such a plan and not work with the Wake County Public School System if school overcrowding is such a concern? In our situation on Joaquina, why would the council suddenly change their support after nearly a year of planning and praise? After approving the rezoning of the properties of our neighbors on Indian Wells and our other surrounding properties, of which we were also in support of. Why must we, at Joaquina Road, remain enveloped by the Cary Town limits and subject to the rules of Cary with no say and no hope of moving on with our lives? Furthermore, how can this council consider approving other annexation or rezoning cases like this one tonight, the Herndon Burke property? And how could such consideration or approval be considered fair to us, especially when these cases have proposed the exact same type of land use as we have, but asking for even smaller lot sizes? Thank you for allowing me to voice my concerns, and I speak on behalf of my neighborhood on Joaquina Road in the ETJ of Cary and west of Highway 55 in regard to this rezoning.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. My name is Earl Hill. I live at 1517 Joaquina Road. Bordering our properties, a rezoning request was recently approved on one side of us. In the not too distant past, a rezoning request was for L-Star. In the not too distant past, a rezoning request was approved for Sedgefield, on which many homes have been built and many more are planned to be built. Also, a request has been approved for a YMCA. Our property lies in the middle of all of these properties, and 2 weeks ago, the town council would not approve a rezoning request for Joaquina Road. The concerns expressed that night as the reasons for not approving the request exists for this same zoning request tonight on the Herndon properties. We're only asking to be treated fairly so that we can move on with our lives. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker for this public hearing. Seeing no one else, I'll close the public hearing. And before I open it up to council members for questions, comments, I wanted to address two issues. One, the traffic study, I believe, is triggered by 100 homes. Is that correct?
100 peak hour trips.
100 peak hour trips, and that would explain why one proposal doesn't trigger a traffic study and the other one does.
That's correct.
And any property owner has a right to go through the process, and this property owner is doing exactly that, and we really don't have the authority to stop that. And that's why we're seeing this proposal. We're not voting on it. We're letting it go through the process.
That's correct.
Okay. Other comments, questions from council members before we send this to our Planning and Zoning Board for their recommendation? Okay, thank you, Ms. Bierman. That will take us to discussion items. Our first discussion item is 6.1, the Land Development Ordinance Text Amendments, Round 30. Ms. Bierman, once again, will present the item, and council may take action to schedule a public hearing. Ms. Bierman.
Okay. At this time, we're asking that you set a public hearing date of January 28th, 2015 for the proposed Round 30 Land Development Ordinance Amendment items. This shows a tentative schedule. Following the public hearing, these items would be referred to the Planning and Zoning Board for a recommendation and then could come back to you for a decision no sooner than April 21st of 2015. This is a list of the 8 amendments that are proposed to be included in this round. There is background information on each of these in your staff report. Draft text is included in your current staff report for some of these items. For the remaining items, we're continuing to work on that text, and the final text will be drafted for the public hearing. And I'll just go through each of these very briefly, give you a brief summary. Item A would revise standards for the infill subdistrict of the corridor transitional district along Walnut Street. And these changes would allow for townhome use for some redevelopment in that area. Would point out, too, that notice of the public hearing for the LDO amendments will be sent to the property owners within 800 feet of that infill area, so they'll know specifically about those changes. Item B addresses internet sweepstakes, also referred to as electronic gaming. This is a use that we continue to receive inquiries about, so we'll get that use added or potentially added to the ordinance or have that considered. Item C seeks to clarify the intent of the LDO regarding consistency of decisions regarding development with the various components of the comprehensive plan. Preliminary text for this item is included in your staff report, but I will point out that we are continuing to refine the wording of this section, so there may be some minor tweaks to that by the time you see that at the public hearing. Item D further implements council direction regarding our transportation system requirements. It includes proposed revisions related to cumulative traffic impacts, traffic study requirements, and the approval authority for certain types of development plans. Item E includes several changes related to signage, and these include provisions that pertain to sign color, temporary banners, wall signs, and window signs. Item F includes several items that relate to specific uses. These changes would eliminate the minimum density requirement for residential use in activity centers, would expand options for light manufacturing use in the town center, would allow for vehicle rental use with certain conditions in shopping centers, and would allow resident wellness center use in industrial districts. Item G includes several changes that are related to review standards and procedures for minor modifications to development standards. And finally, item H includes a variety of minor revisions and technical changes, minor changes to process in various sections of the ordinance. And staff recommends that council set a public hearing date of January 28th for these items to begin the public hearing process at that time. And that concludes staff's comments. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Questions or comments from council before a motion to schedule a public hearing?
I just had a great conversation with Mrs. Bierman this morning on C, on the consistency with the comprehensive plan. For all this and all you got A through H here, for me to find fault with just one word means this stuff is pretty good, I think. But I didn't like the word generally a whole lot thrown in there, generally consistent with the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan is a guideline in and of itself. It's not really an ordinance, and it's generally complied with. So we had to talk about what the intent of that really was. And as Mrs. Bierman mentioned, they're going to maybe be retweaking those words. So I don't know if anybody else had a thought about that generally or not, but to know that staff is looking at that and maybe rephrasing that a little differently.
I was generally okay with it.
You were generally? That's generally unusual.
Oh, before you go any further, I'm going to move that council call for a public hearing on Land Development Ordinance Text Amendments Round 30.
There's a motion.
I'll second.
And the second. Discussion.
And I should specify January 28th for the public hearing. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Amended. Okay. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Bierman. We now move to item 6.2, the staffing impacts due to the Affordable Care Act. Ms. Poole will present the item, and council may take action. Ms. Poole, where is she? Or should we come back to this?
Why don't you just reorder, Mayor,
Yeah.
and we'll come back.
We'll come back to this. We'll jump to 6.3 and do the consideration of artists for downtown park. Mr. Collins will present this item, and council may take action. Mr. Collins.
Good evening, council. As you recall, we have begun the artist selection process and are moving forward with the artist selection process for artists to incorporate art in the downtown park. As previously outlined, we followed the processes of the Public Art Master Plan in incorporating an artist selection panel that included representatives from the Public Art Advisory Board, also from the Heart of Cary, citizens, town staff, including the Downtown Development Manager. Councilman Fran served on that selection panel. The panel had 2 meetings, narrowing down the first meeting was to narrow down the field from the 38 artists that applied for the call to 3 that would come in for interviews. Those artists did come to Cary, visited the site, and went back to develop concepts. And again, these are merely concepts at this point, to bring back to the selection panel, for the selection panel to review and decide which, if all or one or none, or as it turned out 2, artists to continue to be moved forward to the Public Art Advisory Board for consideration And the Public Art Advisory Board accepted the recommendation of the Artist Selection Panel to work with artists Carolyn Braxma and Matt McConnell on developing their plans, and they presented them, and we are now at the point to present the concepts to council. You will recall, or you may recall, that we are looking for integrated aspects for this. So we consulted the landscape architects that have designed the park. They identified 3 potential areas, the first area being the railing that overlooks, the sort of forms a backdrop for this first phase of the park and overlooks what will be the future phase of the park. There's a railing there. And then the other aspects, the architects felt strongly that gateway markers to indicate the entrances to the park off Academy Street and off Kildare Farm Road were necessary and important aspects of good urban design in bringing a clear entrance to the park. So those features were identified. And then finally, opportunities, a little bit less defined, but opportunities in the 2 small garden areas that are flanking the fountain, if you recall from the overall. I don't know if you have access to the staff report, but those are linked in the staff report. You can see where those 3 areas of integrated art are. So just to review the artist concepts, there were 3 artists. Paul Hobson was the first artist that was considered. His approach was to really look at one of those garden rooms and create a berm that would have a cut-face wall that would include elements of Cary's history, using building materials, various building materials, to create a layering of strata that would reflect Cary's history. The advisory selection panel and the Public Art Advisory Board both felt like that really was not necessarily a viable option. It had a number of issues concerning principally the height of the berm that he was proposing would require a railing, which then sort of defeats the purpose of the berm. So his concept, while appreciated, was not further considered. So then the panel focused on Carolyn Braxma, who was taking an approach of nature to look at, and she proposed the aspect of her proposal that the panel found most compelling was her railing aspect, which incorporates a couple of different ways you could look at it. She could use the patterns that are formed by the wings of insects that would be found in the park, or she could take the patterns that are found in the leaf, the veining of leaves that would be found in the park, either of those. And both the Public Art Advisory Board and the Artist Selection Panel felt like that this, because this railing was actually overlooking the natural aspects of the park, the nature idea that she had incorporated was a good fit. The final aspect of consideration was Matt McConnell. You may remember that Matt McConnell was one of the artists that worked on the marquee for the Cary, so he is familiar with our community, probably at a higher level than either of the other artists, but his approach was to try to connect the park to Cary in a significant way by using maps and recognizing that maps form designs. And the idea was that every neighborhood in Cary has a map. Every neighborhood has a distinct look to it. One of the things that he found intriguing, I think, in looking at Cary's overall mapping system was there are areas that have cul-de-sacs, there are areas that don't, there are areas that have round, we have roadways that go round and round and round. We have grid patterns in certain areas, so that variety of areas would allow all of Cary to have an ownership in the park by coming to the park and finding their own neighborhood, their own map. So part of the directive was to find ways to connect Cary to the park, and that was his way of seeing to connect the aspects of the various maps that would engage people. And also, I mean, there's a bit of intrigue, I think, in the design. You don't necessarily know what it is immediately, but you come to figure it out and you come to see it. And I also think there's a relationship between the idea that the mapping, the entry features, because they come off the street, street maps make sense in terms of maps coming into the park. Then you go in and you encounter the railing, which is a more natural element. So those two elements working together. Matt did provide other designs for the railing, and he also looked at the garden areas, but the ultimate consensus of both the advisory board and the vote of the Public Art Advisory Board, the selection panel was under consensus, and then the vote of the Public Art Advisory Board was to engage both the artists, with Matt looking more at the entry features and Carolyn looking more at the railing. And again, at this point, these are concepts. Part of the public art process is dialogue and is talking back and forth. Obviously, we welcome your comments, we welcome your perspectives, which the process would then be to take these comments and take these reactions from council to the artists, and for them to continue to refine these concepts into a final design that then would be integrated into the overall design for the park. And with that, I'm happy to answer your questions.
I think we're going to have a lot of questions, but I would like to start. You talked about, I wonder if it was the architect or the designer that had the markers that felt that was necessary. Can you elaborate just a little bit more on that, why they felt we needed markers?
Sure, they're planning those. They're planning those, and they're included in the budget for the park regardless. Many times they are depicted as obelisks, or they are depicted as round balls, or they're depicted as something so that when you're walking down the street, you know where you're going in. So as you come in, so it's not just sort of a free area to go into the park, but you are really directed. The other thing that those entry markers do from a functional standpoint is provide a framing device for the fountain. And so as you go into the park, you're able to see it directs you to look to the central feature of the park, but these are accent elements on either side. And I think that Matt's approach was to really try to create markers that would not distract from the fountain, but would frame it. And also, you'll notice in both Carolyn's designs and Matt's designs, they both have different options, different approaches. I mentioned how Carolyn's approach was to you could look at the patterns in insect wings, or you could look at the patterns in leaves. There may be other patterns that we would want to consider out of nature, but that's the focuses that she had in the two. If you look at her railing designs, they're two different ones. One shows that leaf pattern, and the other shows the insect wing. And similarly, Matt looked at a whole array of materials that the entry markers be constructed of. I think what the panel felt most appropriate was the metal ones that were more like filigree. They were, because you would create patterns of light that came through at night. The top part would be a solid glass design, and then it would be lit, and the light would come through, casting shadows through the remaining of the maps. And in the daytime, obviously, the sun might do the same thing. He also, though, did present a design where you would have solid maps, throughout the four corners of the entry markers. But again, I think that the consensus of both the advisory, the selection panel, and the Public Art Advisory Board was that the filigree look was lighter, more subtle. Subtle was another word that frequently council used as we were talking about art in this context. And so the idea that both these designs provide a connection to Cary, which was another directive, and that both of them provide a subtle approach that are dispersed in the park and not dominating any feature, but complement the fountain that is the principal feature of the park. Does that help?
It helps me. I mean, I'm okay with I forgot what you call it, the one without the panels.
Filigree.
Yeah, that. And then as far as the railing, I'm still uncomfortable with that because I feel that it's distracting. It's taking away from the natural ability, so I'm wanting to hear from my colleagues about that.
Well, it's a little bit hard to tell in the design because it looks more solid than it is. I mean, it would also have a filigree effect. I mean, you would see through it. There's nothing there. Again, when you look, if you look at what's shown in the presentation, it comes across more solid than it would be. So you would actually see through it, and you just see the designs, and light would go through it. The visual would go through it.
And what would, is there a material?
Metal.
Metal, okay.
Metal.
Please.
As you heard, I had the pleasure of serving on the selection panel. Interesting process. Learned a lot. Was pleased with some things, frustrated with others. We did interview the 3 artists that were ultimately selected to present proposals to the town. It's one of my overriding, I guess, concerns is, at the start of all this, I don't know, dozen, 15 or whatever artists, and then they, show everybody a bunch of pictures of stuff they've done in the past in other communities or projects or whatever, and then you kind of, you narrow it down to the 3 that you thought might be the best, and then it's okay, give us some proposals, come on in. And at that point, you're kind of, well, it's this one, or this one. Even though they're just conceptual, it's, there's, you almost would like to see what the other 12 would have come up with, had they been given the opportunity and more time. The first individual that we interviewed, Matt, who is the one that I believe is doing the entry markers, seemed to really have a feel for Cary. He's done some projects before. I think he said it was the Cary Theater Marquee.
Correct.
So he kind of had an idea of, or knew a little bit about the town. So we all kind of really appreciated that. And it was an interesting concept to use, generic images of road layouts. It just, what he proposed, by the time you put it on the markers and in the fencing and everything else, it was just way too much. Carolyn Broxma, hers was interesting. Definitely she had a focus on the bugs, cicada bugs. I didn't really feel like she put a lot of effort into trying to get a feel or a flavor for what we were trying to accomplish. It's just kind of a cool idea she had. But we did ultimately like the railing concept that she came up with the leaf, not the bug wings. Paul Hobson, he apparently has tried to, or has presented for some past projects in town. And I almost kind of felt bad that he hasn't gotten one, because that guy he was really energetic and excited and really wanted to do work. And unfortunately, his proposal just didn't fit with what we were trying to do. It's almost kind of maybe seemed better fit like a Kids Together park or something like that, where kids can roll and play on it. But by the time you put this there, you'd have to put railings up around it, keep kids from falling off of it, and keep people from trying to chisel the artwork and stuff like that. So unfortunately, he didn't get selected again. I made it clear in the meetings and to the selection committee that I was not a fan of the markers. I think the comment I used, it looked like something I'd see when I walked into Hudson Belk, something display, something, was not my thing. But I did like the idea of somehow trying to use the road networks in some type of art. To me personally, I don't know that we need or markers. I'd be totally fine with a big planter or an urn or something that you could change pretty flowers in every now and then. Told them up front that I don't know I was going to vote for the markers. Still don't know that I'm going to vote for the markers. But I do like the railing. As much as I was not impressed with the initial part of the interview with the artist, I thought that that person has done some pretty good work, and I was very confident that they could do a quality railing that would complement the fountain in the square and the park and everything else. So For me, I guess I'm okay, or I would support the railing concept with further direction to that artist to stay away from bugs. And somehow nature, leaves, whatever, make it pretty. You definitely want to be able to see through it because you want that visual down into the lower level of the park and from there up into the square. I like the idea of art on both sides in the little, I forget what you call them, side gardens.
Yeah, side gardens.
The staff report doesn't really talk about what's going to be put there, but I envision something like what we see with CVA and stuff downtown. It's something that every year we put a different piece of art there, rotating stuff in and out. I don't know that I'd really want to put another more permanent art there. So, I'm just really struggling with the markers. I just, to me, that fountain and that whole plaza is the art. And I feel in some ways it takes away from that. Could there be a much toned down version of that? Something less, I mean, in my face, maybe. Do we need 4 of them? I don't know. So that's kind of where I'm really struggling with the markers. I like the railing, and I like using the side gardens for artistic display.
Other feedback? Mr. Smith?
Well, since we were together on kind of some of this stuff, you know, the bottom line, I thought, I was trying to keep an open mind to it all, and at first I had a real question about the idea of the markers or the framing. But in the end, I honestly said, wow, this so much frames and enhances the fountain. So for me, you know, I have kind of the opposite perspective. I think having that, and you don't see it in some of the pictures that we have here, but how it relates to the streets and the drive-by and people coming into that area. You know, I thought that would be the piece that, frankly, you know, I can't read your minds, but I said, I have a feeling people are going to like that, the way it frames everything. And and the intriguing use of the maps, which I think he's used elsewhere, and it, you know, came out pretty good. If anything, I said, the railings, that'll be interesting, because I couldn't quite, it almost has to be functional and practical, which it is. And I said, you know, I said to the group, you remember a lot of these are all new, and they really took to heart a lot of what they felt was the direction of this group. But, you know, I think one of the things, hearing what you said, Don, I think we just have to come to grips with the markers. You know, we have planting in the back. You see where the corners of the fountain, you know, we have that. And I just thought integrated wise and having a nice frame and a nice entrance into our showpiece, the fountain, I thought they were, I don't know what the right word is, unobtrusive. I thought they would add something that would just give your eye something to gravitate to. The minute you look at the markers, you're looking dead center at the fountain. And, you know, when we looked at the concepts and we took the frame out, all of a sudden it looked kind of like washed out, almost too much green, you know, and then, oh, there's a fountain standing there. I think it, you know, so I think it's just, you know, I'm not the one you want to go to for artistic advice, but I'm just telling you that from the people I've talked to that are not artists and, you know, shared the ideas with and shared the pictures, I got the sense that people warmed up to that idea of the markers. So I just want to share the other perspective, and no harm, no foul, but I got to tell you, when I looked at them and then I looked at the layout without them, I liked them. And you know, the question of could they be higher or lower, if I recall, we had some conversation over that, and we were looking at the proportionality of people walking by, and and all of that. And it turned out that, you know, the ones you're looking at, the cubes, you know, should it be lower? I don't know. All I can tell you is when you look across and you look at how it frames the fountain, that seemed to be a good recommendation to come forward with. So I'm just sharing my, you know, my perspective on it.
Other feedback?
Well, I have to say, I was like you at first, Jack, where I looked at it and went, oh, I'm now not noticing the fountain as much. I'm only noticing the markers. But actually, when I read more in the staff report about the GIS use of the maps, and I have to say, my very first job ever was as a cartographer. So that's a map maker. You're wondering. I like the combination of using the pattern in our town for use as art. I think that really connects who we are, where we've been, and where we're going. I like now, I look at it and it really does frame the fountain. And I thought that same thing. Similar that how columns, in my view, it's really nice continuation of the columns from the Cary Art Center and the column feeling as it frames it. I like that carryover. I also like the fact that it is, without being too obtrusive, it's an interactive component now because you'll walk up to this and try to figure out which map is where I live, where am I, maybe where do I work. I also loved the whole way that it casts a shadow. So you can actually, you know, I can see kids playing in the quote-unquote street of the shadow that's being formed, trying to figure out where they live, where they work. The only question or thought that I had was, and maybe it's pedantic in nature, but it mentioned that they were metal, or I'm guessing some sort of wrought iron or something like that. Is there some sort of maintenance, or I think something outside and metal, I think rust. Is there some sort of maintenance?
They're powder coated.
Right.
So
Okay.
maintenance-wise, if you went with the ones that have all the glass panels in them, then yes, you have a maintenance issue because you might get one broken, vandalized, whatever. The metal ones, not so much a concern.
Okay, I didn't see that in the staff report. But I have to say, at the end of the day, at first I was like, wow, do we really need those? And then the more I walked around in my head what that would look like, it does add a little bit of old and new, a little bit of historical reference, and it does carry over the columns. I think it will be a really interesting addition to that area and continues the art concept from the Cary Art Center over.
Okay, other comments? Mr. Yoha?
Looking at all the exhibits that we were given with the staff report of the three artists and the railings and the markers for all of them, I really think the committee chose the right ones. I think they did a good job getting us to this point. I think the railing with the leaves, as long as we could see through them, like you say there, I think that would be, I'm fine with those. The markers, first time I looked at them, I don't know. Every time I kept going back, I kind of liked them more and more, and I wonder if that's the way it's going to be. Maybe it's something that will grow on you when they're installed. My only concerns, we're talking about distraction from the fountain. I didn't know if they were shorter. I didn't know that was a discussion of the height. I was just thinking if they were shorter, would they maybe be less of a distraction if people think they are? I do like the filigree one rather than the glass one. And my only other concern is, I like, from an intellectual standpoint, I like the maps. I think that's a great concept. But will people, I guess they will, but will they know where they are, or are some people just going to think they're squiggly lines? And that would be concerning.
Well, we did have some discussion. We did have some discussion about that, of helping people understand what they're looking at, and then perhaps at some point we may even be able to use the web or use some QR codes or use something that would then people could even go on and say, oh, I found my neighborhood, or I found, the real idea with the maps, and I think what was so, I think what the selection panel and the Public Art Advisory Board responded to was the idea that the downtown park, I think everyone has said is for everyone. It's not for downtown. And so what could you find, what would be something that would draw people from outside of downtown to downtown? And so Matt's approach was to, again, look at maps all over Cary, and then when it would be unveiled, that would certainly be something that we would make people very aware of. So they may come first and see squiggly lines, but then they come and look again, or they try to go through the park and find which is their neighborhood. And you could even ultimately do contests. Who's found their neighborhood. You could even engage the neighborhood association to maybe come over, bring your group over to the park and find your neighborhood. I think it opens up a lot of opportunities for that, creating that feeling that the park is for all of Cary, because it has representations of all of Cary, and that's what maps do. I mean, they represent everything. So,
No, neat idea.
Other comments on this end? Yes.
I'll just say I like Carolyn's railings with the leaf texture. I wasn't as wild about the bugs. I glanced at it and right away I could tell it was based on bugs. It just didn't appeal to me. May appeal to a lot of 8-year-old boys, but not really for me. And Matt's, the maps that Matt has created, they don't really resonate with me necessarily. I don't think I would pick these. I'm fine with the posts being as kind of gateways. The imagery that's created by the maps, why I think the concept is intriguing, and I've really appreciated hearing other people's opinions, like Lori's, about it. It kind of looks like broken spider webs or something to me. It doesn't really resonate with me. So I'm just concerned that a lot of other citizens are going to come by and just be like, and go on, where I really want them to find this, whatever we put up here, to be kind of beautiful and inviting for the park. And I'm not sure if this hits it necessarily.
So would we see like a plate at the bottom with the artist's name and a title, Maps of Cary Neighborhoods or something?
certainly it could. Again, we're at the conceptual phase. So the comments that you have, the idea of which maps, there are a variety of ways you can look at mapping. Matt talked about it in his presentation. You could look at the greenways and put a greenway map there. Again, it's going to look like a map, because maps look like maps, but it's still a pattern and creates patterns, and you want people to try to, I mean, it's a bit intellectual in a way, because you do want them to think about the pattern and try to figure out what the pattern is. And we're an intellectual community, frankly, and it has that, it gives that opportunity for engagement in a different way, and certainly treats art, I think, in a very different way.
Most of Matt's comments focused on the maps as far as downtown neighborhoods and surrounding neighborhoods. I think he mentioned that, you'd see a lot of people that would walk to this and then try to find their specific neighborhood. If you do the math, you end up with 80 maps. Okay, so you're not hitting all of Cary. It's just not happening. What maps they decide on ultimately, I don't know, but that's kind of where he was coming from. That's what we were told.
Well, again, I think he can take it in any kind of direction, but again,
Yeah.
direction that comes from you.
What I was getting at was I kind of actually liked his suggestion or what he was proposing. I don't know that we need to start telling which maps and which neighborhoods and stuff like that, but.
Yeah, I think leave it open, but just let people know that it's maps.
I'm okay with just starting with the last thing everyone discussed, the maps. I think it's an intriguing idea, and what you're really asking us at this point is, generally, would some kind of mapping work for this? And I think yes. So I'd go with that. I think I like the idea of the railings, and I agree with you about 8-year-old boys and bugs, having raised 2 boys. And I would say the gateway markers remind me of dating. You go out with somebody the first time, you think, I don't know. By the 3rd time, you're going, I love this guy. So, that's how I feel about the markers. That's not a true story.
I hope Kevin's not watching.
But I would just say they do grow on you. You see them and you go, I don't know. And you look at them again, you look at them and you go, gosh, that looks good. So I really like the idea of the gateway markers as well.
I'll make a motion if you want.
Okay.
I make a motion that we approve the entrance markers with the,
The concept of the entrance.
right, what's the word for the see-through ones?
Filigree.
Filigree ones. That we approve the railing with some form of see-through leaf concept. And that we utilize the side gardens for temporary art.
Oh, second.
It's a motion and second, and in that motion, I guess it implies the artists that are
Hiring.
selected.
Associated with each of those.
Moving forward to hire those artists.
Yes.
Okay, and that, kind of thought that was implied.
I just want to make sure that was clear. Okay.
And then I would like to follow up with either a different motion or direction to staff after this.
Okay.
For the what? I'm sorry.
After this, he wants to
After
do
that
another
motion.
motion.
On,
Directing staff.
oh, okay.
Yeah, you'll find out.
I was gonna say,
You gotta wait for it.
So there's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
6-1. Okay,
Okay.
Mr. France.
One of my issues with the process, like I said earlier, was we looked at a lot of good artists and good artwork from good artists, and we ended up being forced to pick 3 to submit proposals to the town. I would have loved to have seen what 2, 3, 5, 8 more could have come up with if given the opportunity. I don't know that that costs the town anymore. I don't know that if we're doing this like we should be on the front end, if it negatively impacts timing of projects or anything. I did not like that it was narrowed down to only 3 to consider, because there were other artists that I liked a lot of what they did and had worked well in other communities. So I don't want to pick a number. I don't want to micromanage it to the point where we say how, but I would like to direct staff to look at the process for future artist selections to see if maybe we can open that up to 5, 6, 8 artists that would submit to the town.
Well, there is a cost associated with that because artists do receive stipends to develop their concepts because there's an expense in terms of developing the concept. But we certainly can, you know, when future projects come forward, if council wants to direct that we look at an additional, we don't have to have a magic number every time.
I don't know the number. Is it 5? Is it 6?
I don't know either.
It
And
probably
you may
varies
not
by
know until
project,
you.
Don, to be honest, and the quality and the variety.
Right, you
and
may
the
not know
type of
until you
artist.
actually see the range of artists that are, but then we would need to budget for that.
Right.
That's the.
And I keep
And it
going
does
back-
take time, it does take a little bit more time, you know, so.
Well-
And hopefully, I mean, we are taking council's directive truly to heart in that we want to integrate the art from the beginning. And in knowing that that's the direction you have given us, we want to be in on the front end so that we have the time. I mean, when you can start, when you're still at the master planning stages of projects or at the very initial stage, you've got time to do some of those things. This particular project, because the park was, you know, we're pretty far down and we want to keep the construction schedule on track. So we didn't have the luxury of time. So in future projects, again, if we have the time and we have the budget, then I certainly think that's.
The reason I bring it up is I actually sat on the artist selection panel for the Walnut Street corridor, or Walker Street corridor extension, the tunnel thing, and they selected 3 artists. One backed out or something, and so they went with that 4th artist alternate who ended up being the one that was selected. Elizabeth
Connor,
thank you. So it was kind of like, yeah, maybe didn't interview well, or maybe didn't do something, but when it was given the opportunity to present their stuff, it wowed the committee and that she was selected. So
that was an interesting, and I remember that clearly too. It was actually the first streetscape project that she was involved with, but you're correct. And she actually, when we called her to tell her that we had had an artist drop out and she was an alternate, she bought a plane ticket right then and came over to make the presentation and did. You're right.
I still have the little dogwood flowers she made out of clay. Cool
You're right.
stuff. So I guess you have clear direction.
I do.
Is there
And
everyone on
I
council
wrote it
that-
down,
Did we
Don.
get a second?
No,
I
I don't know if
was
you
it
can
a
get it in
motion?
form of a motion.
Oh, you, just direction, I got you, I'm sorry.
I don't
No,
know
I
if you
think
need a
you're onto
motion.
something, because it's about missed opportunity. It's what you're trying to avoid, missed opportunity, and I think that's always a good thing to look at.
So unless anybody disagrees with Mr. Francis' direction, I don't think so.
We certainly can take that direction. I do want to just reiterate again the importance of getting in on the front end
Right.
and the potential budget impacts. But other than those two things, then that's entirely conceivable.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We'll now move back to item 6.2, and Mr. Bajorek will introduce the item, staffing impacts due to Affordable Care Act. Mr. Bajorek.
Good evening, Council. You have in front of you a staff report asking you to consider approving the conversion of 8 part-time temporary positions to full-time regular positions as a result of provisions of the Affordable Care Act. I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have. I have staff here that if it really gets technical, I'll have people here to support it.
Okay. Council have questions, comments, or a motion?
I had a question before a motion. I didn't catch this the first time. They're part-time temporary. How long have they been temporary? Or is that just a terminology, internal terminology used? It doesn't imply they were hired for a short-term thing? Because that's not what I took away from the staff report.
Yes, ma'am. The majority of these positions, these people have been working extensive amount of time, 20-some
Okay,
years.
that's all I needed to know, and I apologize for missing that. And I'd be happy to move approval of the staff recommendation.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion?
Just, no issues with it per se. It just, we don't really have a choice. I mean, Fed says do this, we do this.
Right, and it's the right thing to do. I mean, I thought your comments, in fact, I appreciated when I read the story in the paper, and they quoted, which I'm hopeful that Andy quoted all three of you correctly. It sounded like you. Those were great comments about, this is about the people and the staffing and the right thing to do regardless. I mean, I realize we're taking this step because of a federal government legislation, but what you basically said and what is the truth is this is the right thing to do for these people. They're long-term employees, and I was so appreciative of what you said.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Bajorek. We now move to item 6.4, consideration of Fortified TTA Park and Ride License Agreement. Mr. Howell will present the item, and council may take action. Mr. Howell.
Good evening, council. I'm here to seek approval to allow the town to enter into a temporary 2-year lease agreement with Triangle Transit to allow them to use a maximum of 60 parking spaces on the top level of the town hall parking deck. This lease agreement was prompted by the NCDOT's Fortify Rebuild project, and the goal of that is to reduce vehicle congestion during the construction project of the highway. And Triangle Transit has been given funds by DOT to increase enhanced bus service, and one of those routes will be running from downtown Cary to downtown Raleigh, Monday through Friday, with peak services express running between each downtown center. The town of Cary, with the agreement, has been, we will be receiving roughly $4,320 annually per the 2 years to use those spaces. And then in addition to this agreement, they will be providing new pedestrian mobility infrastructure along Wilkinson Avenue, as well as new bus stop infrastructure, as well as a bus shelter. All of that will be provided by them, and it must be returned to its physical state as it is now at the end of this agreement. I can take any questions.
Questions?
Say that again. It must be returned to its
Original state as we see it now.
Dismantle the
So they're going to put all this new cool stuff in, and then they're going to take it out?
So that is left open in the agreement. So the town has the ability, if Triangle Transit does not want to take the equipment back, we have the ability to buy it and add it to our capital inventory.
Buy it.
That is 2 years down the road.
We're only getting $4,320 a month for 60 parking spaces for 365 days a year. Least they could do is give us the stuff at the end of it.
I think what he's saying is it's early for us to be able to be in a position to make that decision. It's a great idea, but I don't know that we can lock that in on the front end. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I mean, the only reason I'd consider this is we get the stuff. I mean, because $4,300 a year to take away 60 public town parking spots, to me, is not a good deal. If you end up getting infrastructure and stuff at the end of that as a result, then okay, I can see the partnership, but.
I heard you make a statement, you were talking about the top level.
Yes, sir.
Who's going to enforce that?
So that was discussed with Triangle Transit in preliminary discussions, as well as with the police department. At this point in time, we looked at how the town deals with illegally parked vehicles, and that is done on a vehicle-to-vehicle basis. And Triangle Transit is responsible for communicating to their customers, which they don't expect to exceed 60, to communicate at the top level as a courtesy. And if there is a repeated pattern, as viewed by staff here at the town, as well as those from Triangle Transit see that it is happening, they will be addressed individually.
Okay.
I was trying to understand, what is the use of the parking deck now? Is it high use? Is this going to cause any issues for current parkers?
No, not at this time. As we have viewed it, the top level of the parking deck, when looked at with the police department and other departments as well, it is typically very empty. The top level at this point, I believe we only have 1 or 2 staff members that may park up there, as well as we have some seized vehicles that are there for temporary storage by the police department, and there's only 4 to 5 there at this point in time, and that is all the chief stated may be there at any point in time.
I would also add it's 13% of the parking spaces in that deck. That's a pretty low percentage, and it's the least utilized level which is basically what you just said. Don, I'm with you on it'd be great to lock in those improvements on the front end, but in looking at the bigger picture, which is Wake County, this part of Wake County, we really need to get cars off the road while they're working on this. This is just horrific. This is a very creative way to do that and get people to maybe get into the habit of using public transportation before, people who ordinarily would not, and help move us along that path of getting people to go, oh wow, I could do this on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. And so it's a trade-off, I know, but I'm at this point in favor of approving the staff recommendation for this. Although I think you have an excellent point about leaving the infrastructure in. I mean, why take it out? Maybe that's something that can, be discussed now so that we're ready to boom on that in 2 years. But I hate to give up an opportunity to help the region and help our citizens transition over to greater use of public transportation. My only concern with this is that if we're going to start something that's going to be great, we don't have a plan for after 2 years. Right, and it looks like you lost. You could get used to, so our citizens could get used to this use of public transportation. Mm. And right now, there's an end to it, right? So we could formulate some new habits. I see Mr. Bailey getting up. We could formulate some new habits, and lose at the end of that, it could go away.
I was in the initial meeting with Triangle Transit on discussing this item, and they said they were actually picking these routes to help determine ridership. So if the ridership is high, I believe they will continue these routes, but they'll need to seek an alternate funding source. But ridership usually is a good way to get that funding. So also in those discussions, they said it may be optional to leave some of these facilities. I think when we get to the end and we see we need them, because it will cost them some money to remove them. So I think we can, at the end, if we find something that's working well for us, ask them to leave them. I believe it will be very likely we'll be able to keep those.
Is there having negotiated multiple contracts as well in private sector, so I don't know what it's like in the public sector, is there a way as you work out this agreement to put that in now?
Certainly. Usually these contracts, we have the ability to make minor adjustments. We could talk to them, and if they're agreeable, it could give us the option to either have them removed or ask them to leave them at our option, depending on what's happening at the end of the contract.
Sure love to have an option rather than saying automatically they go away.
I agree with that. And knowing Mr. Bailey, I believe he'll put his best effort into that.
Okay, are we ready for a motion?
Well, I'll make a motion to authorize the town manager to enter into the agreement with TTA, making any minor modifications to the agreement as deemed necessary for the use of the maximum of 60 spaces in Town Hall parking deck as a park and ride for the term of January 1st through January 1st, 2015 through December 31st, 2016, with the possible short-term extensions, and collecting $4,320 annually per the terms of the agreement
Second?
Motion and second. Discussion.
Yeah. Help me understand how we know the 60 cars that are going to be parking in the deck again, that are riding TTA? I mean, what keeps 80 from showing up? Or
That's a valid question, and I don't quite know the answer to that, sir.
Okay.
It is.
Bus probably only holds.
Are you saying what keeps 20 more people from trying to get to the deck and having to turn around and leave?
Oh.
Isn't that your question?
No, but say 100.
Oh,
Say 100
park
people
somewhere-
wanted to park and ride.
Oh, spill over
How
into
do we
other
police it?
spaces. Oh, that's a good question.
So one of the things that Triangle Transit mentioned in the meeting is that we would work something out for that. They talked about maybe stickers so we could recognize which cars were in and ask them to apply them so we would know which cars, and it could be policed, staff could police it. And if we saw a problem, inform Triangle Transit, and they said they would work to help correct that. We feel like the numbers will probably be well below that, actually.
I would think they would too. I mean, most people in Cary are not going to get in their car, drive to a parking deck to get out, wait 15 minutes for a bus, take an hour and a half ride to get where they're going, walk from the bus stop to wherever they're going. And while I appreciate your comments, Ms. Adcock, pulling 60 cars off of the highway is not going to make
Well,
one
it's a
hell of
cumulative effect. They're doing this in various places, I'm guessing. But I agree with you, 60 cars by themselves, spit in the ocean. But it's 60 times however many places they're going to do this.
And we've been working with Triangle Transit at the depot since it was built in '96 and opened, and we've actually had a good arrangement there. They have a few spaces. We watch and monitor that. They actually have a little sign up there. That's where they're supposed to be targeted. And based on our observation, the people that show up really early tend to park in those spots with this signage. So, so again, we've had a good history there. We can push signage or stickers or other things, and they said they would be willing to work with us to develop that program. We just don't have that stipulated in the agreement.
Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
No.
Motion carries 6-1. Thank you, Mr. Howell.
Thank you.
We now move to item 6.5, Land Development Ordinance Text Amendments, Round 28B. Mr. Ulma will present this item. Council may take action. Mr. Ulma.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. This is the last item that's been trailing on LDO Round 28B, and it involves the changes that Council's been discussing with staff for quite a while related to our rezoning procedures. And it has three parts: the neighborhood meetings, the concept plan as a part of a rezoning as a condition, and then afterwards how much change could occur to an approved concept plan once it came through rezoning. As I mentioned, this is part of a round that you've already dealt with. It was ready for you in August, and we asked you to delay it because part of what we were trying to look at are the staffing implications. So you have these amendments and another recommendation that goes with that. As far as the first piece, this is the proposal where the staff would take over the required neighborhood meetings that we now require applicants to do, which they do in advance of submitting their rezoning application. The other thing Council asked for is that we look at pulling that in to the process. So we would reverse the order, ensure that the rezoning petition is in, then we would work on scheduling the neighborhood meeting, and then we would be aware of cases and all that would be associated with the case. We would coordinate that meeting rather than having those occur different times, so we would look for a consistent time on a monthly basis. So the applications we'd receive in December, we would schedule the 3 rezonings, 5, whatever they were, for a future neighborhood meeting. And we would be the ones providing the notices to all the property owners within 800 feet of those respective rezoning applications. And then we would also start with that sort of overview, setting expectations, making sure citizens knew and had a general feel for what to expect during the upcoming rezoning process that they would be involved in. And then the applicants would be able to go use separate spaces and conduct those individual meetings about each respective rezoning with the interested citizens. So that's the first part of it. Part 2 is the concept plan, where we define this as illustrative, conceptual. It, as written, would be optional in conjunction with a conditional use case. This is not optional, if you remember. It's a requirement. When we do mixed-use rezonings, we already have a requirement to do a preliminary development plan. It would be essentially equivalent, more in-depth for a mixed-use rezoning than it would be probably for a typical conditional use case. We would also have written zoning conditions as well. So the sketch could reflect, supplement, help explain what you often see, or as staff is explaining the setback and the buffers, you would have a conceptual that would be able to better illustrate the zoning conditions. But the conditions, the written conditions, we would definitely rely on, considering that it is a conceptual layout. As written, we've laid out what we think as the minimum elements that ought to be included in this plan, the overall general layout of the site with buildings and uses, features that you normally address during a rezoning process, so open space and buffers, location of stormwater BMPs, access, connections, circulation, and any other of those kinds of development standards. Finally, the third piece relates to how much change can occur after you approve a rezoning with an associated concept plan, and we've written it essentially if one wants to make any significant change afterwards, unless it reduces density or intensity, or it's something that has to be done, the concept plan as sketched doesn't meet a particular ordinance requirement that they have to meet, that change would be expected. Otherwise, we'd be looking to say that that would necessitate a new rezoning request in order to make significant changes to that layout that you saw and the community saw during that rezoning process. So with that, staff would recommend approval of Round 28B amendments relating to those three items. In addition, so that if council proceeds along these lines, we would ask that you delay the effective date of us taking over the neighborhood meetings until March 1st of 2015, so we've just published our rezoning schedules for the next year. We need to work on schedules, timing, coordination, figuring out when those meetings would occur, adding them to the schedule so applicants would know what it is, and to handle the added responsibilities of meetings and review of concept plans and other related LDO requirements that we've been identifying for you in our fiscal impact and saying, well, these are changes that we can absorb with existing staff. We've reached the point where with this one, we don't believe that we can do that. So our other recommendation included in your report is the addition of another planner in the planning department who would become involved with these and other planning and zoning, planning and development responsibilities. Planning and Zoning Board saw this earlier. The language hasn't changed significantly. We might have refined things, and their recommendation at the time was that council approve all of these 9-0. And so you have the item. In addition, you have to deal with the statement of consistency. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
Okay, very good. Questions, comments?
I mean, my only comment is, looks great here. I'm curious to see how it works in the real world. If it's not a busy season time of year, it probably will go well. If there's a couple contentious rezonings flying at the same time, I'm curious to see how that works out. But I want to see how it works out. I hope it's a success. Let's give it a fly and see what happens.
We have a slight concern that we might have an applicant or representatives of rezonings where they have multiple rezoning cases. We're not quite sure how we're going to divide them up into thirds and send them to different meetings, but we'll have to figure that out when we get there.
Ms. Hadcock.
This was such a great idea. I support all of it in theory, and I support the part about the concept plan totally. What I worry about with a mid-year appropriation is that we don't know what's coming at us. I mean, we have an idea of what's coming at us in terms of lost revenue from the privilege license tax removal, but we have no idea what's going to happen with sales tax distribution. And I'm concerned about a mid-year appropriation right in the middle of planning for budget for next year. And while I think the part about changing the neighborhood meeting process is a stellar idea, we are not, it's not broken to the point where I'm willing to take the financial chance on that. I think if we wait and incorporate that into the budget process and then look at this for next year, delaying it 6 months is not going to kill anybody. I'm really concerned about what's going to happen to municipalities possibly with the talk about the change in the distribution of the sales tax out there. So I certainly support this idea from the beginning, but I do have those financial concerns. For that reason, I'm going to go with I would vote for a motion that supports the concept plan and does not go with the change in the neighborhood meetings at this point. But I'm not going to, you guys are smart, and our budget staff are terrific. And if you feel that you can live with that amount of risk, then, I trust you. But I just want to tell you how I felt about it.
I think that's a very wise approach. We've always looked at adding our staff holistically against all the other departmental needs. So I think that's very wise. That gave me a lot of concern, just like it gave Gail concern when you said that we would need another staff member to be able to execute this. And I agree. I think that this would be a better process. But is it so much better that it justifies another person, which would mean we may not get that other person in some other department where we really have been wanting that person? I'd much rather, instead of saying yes or no tonight, say, let's push this off and include it with our budget. And if we think that we have the capacity for another person in our budget in the planning department, then approve it at that time. And if not, say, shelf it for a while until we do.
Other comments?
I think that's a good argument. I also think that with the onslaught of the development processes and the things coming and the confusion and the chaos in the community with citizens, and look, it was a great attempt to have the developer meet early. We learned a lot of lessons from that, the unintended consequences. All of a sudden, we're getting barraged with inquiries and we don't even know about the process. And, intellectually, emotionally, I agree with, and it just screams that we wait till the budget time. At the same time, we have so many things going on in this area that we've got resources stretched. We've got quasi-judicials being pushed out till March, fully stopped. I think this is one we got to get ahead of. So, not that I disagree. I just think for me the priority is
hard.
I would rather see us move on this now.
Okay, other comments?
So my concern, I'm sorry, were you?
No.
My concern is that we as a council opened up the notification area to a larger group, to 800 feet and we actually, by, I don't want to say being magnanimous, but by letting even more people know what's going on, we're now hearing from residents and neighbors who aren't being as directly impacted, which means there are already neighbors coming to staff asking questions who in the past would not. We as a council discussed that it was very important to get in front of this and that this was a priority, and that we're hearing a lot from concerned neighbors that there's not consistency in the neighborhood meeting. So I feel like we teed it up, to use some golfing terms as well, but we teed it up. We said it's really important. We asked staff to go look at it, and they've come back with some great suggestions. We've told our residents and our citizens that it's important for us to get the information, but now we said, well, you're going to have to wait until next year. Staff has already said they want to push some of this off until March, and they're already feeling, I'm sure, the effects of a lot of increased development, et cetera. I really think we should put our money where our mouth is and fund this and get the information to these neighbors who are dying to have a consistent way of being heard, or being told what's going on and being heard.
I'm sorry, may I ask a follow-up? First of all, everything you said is absolutely on target. We asked staff to look at this, but when I didn't anticipate, probably should have, but did not anticipate it would require an increase in staff. At the same time, all these contextual things are going on about municipal revenue. And I will reluctantly vote against that piece, because I agree with you 100%. It offers a better process for the citizens and for the staff and for us. But I am very concerned about the finances. And so, you know, it's got so much right about it.
What are the finances?
No, I'm saying, well, we add a staff member in March, and we don't know what we're going to potentially take an additional revenue hit this year. And, you know, Jennifer's point about one of the potential risks with a mid-year appropriation, particularly for staff, is that you are in the middle of the budget process and evaluating where other staff is needed. And you're actually putting them at the head of the line. Maybe they belong there, but you may have other positions that truly were at the head of the line and got bumped. So, I mean, it's just a risk. Life is full of risk. And I mean, jump in front of you, Ed. Thanks for letting me.
Well, I'm pretty much what you were saying. I'm comfortable with a mid-year appropriation. I'm thinking that we're probably going to need another person in the planning staff for other things anyway come budget time. And this, of course, will move it up a few months, but not that many. March, you were thinking? Was that the date that was on here?
It would take us a while to do the recruitment. In any case, we'd be working on getting it set up, so existing staff, if you went for it, if we didn't have that specific person, we'd still be initiating and getting ready to launch that part of the program that time anyway.
Yeah, no, I think I'm okay with doing that. As far as the whole thing with the neighborhood meetings, I hope it works. I mean, you started saying it looks good on paper. That's kind of where I'm coming from there, too. I want to give it a try, but I have the feeling there could be some other unintended consequences maybe when we do this, and I think it's worth a shot. But I wouldn't be surprised if a year from now or 2 years from now, after it starts, we have to go back again. But I would like to see it, hopefully see it work, and I'm okay with sooner rather than later.
Can we get a motion?
He's doing it to you now.
Well, I recommend approval of the proposed Round 28 LDO text amendment, item B, and also recommend that an additional planner, senior planner, be added in the planning department as a mid-year appropriation at the time the planning department sees fit to do that.
There's a motion.
I'll second.
And a second. Further discussion.
I'm kind of, I hate to be like Jack and do like the
5149
5149 stuff.
Could I ask a favor?
That's what it is. It's
Could
a
I-
5140.
Could I ask a parting favor? Could we divide the motion and, you know, break it into the parts? Because I'd really like to vote for the concept plan, but I don't feel that I can vote for changing the neighborhood meeting process. And so it would give me I feel like I'm Jennifer here in her gracefulness. Give me
I'll
the
retract my
opportunity
motion.
to vote. That would be kind of you, Ed.
Back in a second.
All right, try again.
I'll recommend that we approve proposed Round 28 LDO text amendment, item B, items 2 and 3.
Second.
A second.
Motion and
Oh,
a
did you
second.
second? Sorry.
Discussion.
Thank you, Ed.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimous.
Now, another motion to recommend approval of proposed Round 28 LDO text amendment, item B, number 1, with the additional recommendation that I can put that together. Is that all okay, Ms.?
Was that number 1 or number 2?
Number 1
The
is
thing about the neighborhood meetings?
the neighborhood meetings.
That's okay. Yes, sir, that's.
And recommend that an additional planner 2 or senior planner be added to the planning department as a mid-year appropriation at the time suggested by the planning department.
There's a motion.
I'll second.
And a second. Discussion. All
May I clarify, Mayor, that Mr. Yerhaw, didn't you mean to have the delayed effective date for that amendment to March?
Yes, he was a little more vague about it. He said at the time the staff recommended, but he meant.
Yeah, I didn't want to nail them down to March if it was
Thank you.
at the appropriate time.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm going to vote for it. I really appreciate Ms. Adcock's concerns and comments, and I tend to kind of agree with you on that. But at the same time, we've also said this is really important, and I think our citizens consider this really important. And I think if they could get better information in a more timely manner and factual, correct information, I think they would find it worth it. So for that reason, I want to support it.
Yeah. I'm
Totally
not
get it.
quite at 5149. I think I'm more like 5248. So there's a good phrase.
Woo-hoo, a new metric.
So I think I'm going to support it too. Other comments, questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Carries 5-2. Thank you, Mr. Ullman. Oh, we
Oh,
got the
comprehensive.
comprehensive plan. consent.
Oh, if I'd have known that, I wouldn't have made the.
Yeah.
I move that we approve the statement of consistency and reasonableness for LDO text amendment round 28B, based on the council's decision on land development ordinance text amendments.
There's a motion.
Second.
And a second. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Ullman.
Thank you.
We now move to item 6.7. This is council-initiated request on behalf of Triangle Math and Science Academy. At our November 20th council meeting, council directed staff to research this request. The staff report with findings is included in the agenda packet. As this is a council-initiated item, I'll turn it over to Ms. Robinson to explain her request.
Okay. You have before you a report that the staff created. We were asked by the Triangle Math and Science Academy to conduct a public hearing on their behalf so that they can have a different funding granted to them. I guess they're going after different kind of bonds. So that is what we asked them to do, and we have the opportunity now to either, I guess, approve this or deny and say no.
Okay. Ms. France, anything to add?
Not really, no. That's pretty much the gist of it.
Okay. I want to read a part of the report just to bring it to everyone's attention. Staff asked that I do that. There's fiscal impact. There appears to be no contractual risk resulting from the approval of the bonds. However, if the school fails financially or in performance and therefore it loses its charter from the state and its resulting revenue streams, the borrower could default on its bonds. There is a concern, although remote, that the bondholder could name the town as a party in a suit to recover their investment. And while staff is confident the town would not be found liable, the cost to defend the town and educate our citizenry on the complex transaction would be the responsibility of the town. Just throwing that out there because staff asked me to make sure we're aware of that. Ms. Eckhoff.
So I had the opportunity to speak to the applicant's representative today, and I believe, if I'm correct, that there's an opportunity for indemnification of the town, and I would ask if it's appropriate and if the council would like to have the representative and anyone else who's here representing Triangle Math and Science Academy come and speak to that, as I'm a belt and suspenders kind of girl, and that offers that added protection. So I would ask if you'd like to hear that, and ask the mayor if it's okay to invite them forward.
Never heard that. I gotta write these down. Belt and suspenders.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jason Barron with Morningstar Law Group here on behalf of the applicant. And I did speak with Councilor Adcock earlier today, and I understand that it is an unusual request that is before you that ultimately will go to public hearing in January. And that while we are confident that there will be no liability that the town could potentially incur, we recognize that due to the unusual nature, there might be some trepidation just being associated with it all. So to address any continued trepidation, we would be happy to indemnify the town fully for any potential liability associated with the resolution and the approval of the resolution.
Okay.
To me, that kind of seals the deal, you know.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Just from a consistency perspective, you're the process lady, I'm the consistency lady. This is for a charter school. We've been very varying degrees of what we can do with and for schools. It seems to me that this would have been something that was appropriate for Wake County to look at. Could the applicant speak to that at all?
Yes, Councilor Bush, we pursued this with the county before we came to the town. And unfortunately, we couldn't get the matter placed on a county commissioner's agenda in time to meet the deadline that we had, and essentially determined that unfortunately we weren't going to get support from the Wake County Board of Commissioners for this. Now, granted, that was a couple of months ago. I don't know if the election would have changed that or not, but we essentially turned to the town once we realized that we essentially struck out at the county level. So we have pursued it, but unfortunately have determined that we couldn't get the requisite support to do so.
Thank you.
Sure.
And speaking of process, you're fine, Ms. Barron. Speaking of process, I want to address another issue. It's my understanding that we're proposing to call a public hearing for a private entity. Mr. Shiver, have we done that before?
Not to my knowledge.
So that kind of bothers me that we're calling a public hearing for a private entity, and would that set a precedence? I'm looking at the attorney, set a precedence for other private entities to hold public hearings on their behalf. I don't know.
Council is permitting another group to use your council meeting for a public hearing, so I don't know that it's precedent, but it does maybe set expectations in the community, and I think you would be expected to treat others similarly situated the same way.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry, Mayor, may I speak? I feel like this group and the town are in a catch-22. They're required by federal law to have a municipality or some such hold a public hearing, and they're trying to find the venue to do it. I mean, they don't have a choice. We would like to see more schools, public schools in Wake County, and particularly in our area. And we have the opportunity to do something that we step out on a limb a little bit. I totally agree about the expectation nature of this. But the greater good to me is getting that great school in our area. So.
Other comments?
Well, I think it's.
And depending on what happens at the public hearing, I'm sorry, because I'm making a foregone conclusion there'll be
Right.
support at the public hearing, and I don't really know, because that's what this is about. I apologize, Jack.
No. Well, I think that, I don't know. Honestly, I struggle with it, and I struggle with understanding the logic of it coming to us. The fact that the appropriate bodies are saying no, so now it comes to us, and we, I guess for that greater good of the opportunity to have more schools in the area is probably the overriding thing. But the real question is, what is there an expectation that's created in the community, and what does this open up? Now, frankly, I'm not afraid of precedent because we always have the right to say no. So in management, I used to always argue that don't hide behind precedent because you always have the right to say no. The laws may change, but the lawyers may tell you different. But I just, where's the school board in this? I would have much rather had a joint effort or something. You said you went to the Wake County. What about the school board? Of course, they have cross purposes, They want the public schools versus the charter schools. I don't know. I just find this one, for all its good intentions, I find this a troubling way for us to go. So I'll just leave it at that.
Could I just make a clarification? A charter school is a public school, correct?
Right.
Yes,
Okay,
it's a
it's not a
state
private school.
Yeah,
Okay, I
but
just want to make sure.
there's not always-
I want to use the
Yeah,
lottery and the whole thing.
Well, even the relationships between public
I
schools
understand
and
they have
private
some-
schools.
they have,
I may not have said that well, but
no,
They
I
don't
mean,
like-
you're right. I mean, there's certain things they don't have to provide that a fully
I understand.
recognized public school does. You're absolutely correct about that.
And there, in the staff report, there was a mention of being able to go to the Wake County School Board, but unfortunately, since they don't have bonding and financial approval of schools, that's why they probably wouldn't have been the right place to go.
And I keep reminding myself, this is about holding a public hearing. I can't wait to hear what the citizens, I mean, if they get to hold the public hearing here, it'd be really interesting to hear what the citizens have to say about bonding this. And so I know our issue is just, do they hold the public hearing here?
Yeah, my only concern with that is at the end of the day, and we don't know what we're going to hear.
No.
But at the end of the day, the expectation is that this council puts out a resolution in support of it. should the public hearing
Be held.
be held, right? So I'm very torn. I'm not going to say the 5149. I'm torn because we've always said that our hands are tied when it comes to schools, right? And actually, in the past couple of months, now that the new commissioners have been very public in their support of additional funding of schools, I can see us beginning to hopefully turn a corner when it comes to funding of schools. There's no commitment yet. We don't have it in writing, but this is something that we could do, that where the liability, especially with the indemnification, is very small. So it's the one time that I think we could do something to help. And although I've been torn and said, oh, schools, we don't really do anything about it, here's a chance for us to do something.
I know if we had a rule about how many times you could speak to an issue, I would have been thrown out a long time ago, but would you let me say one more thing?
It's your last meeting,
It's kind
so
of,
let
hey,
it
I got
slide.
carte blanche, I can say whatever I want. I was troubled by and Lori, you nailed it, I was troubled by the word approve. And early on, I asked Mr. Barron, why can't we use a different word that doesn't make it sound like weird? And that's the legal term, I don't want to misspeak for you, Mr. Barron, but that's the legal term they have to use. And it's not your Funkin' Wagnall's definition. So that's how I got past that piece.
We ready for a motion?
Yeah. Mayor, may I just bring to council's attention that staff had some items that they were seeking council's direction on?
Right.
In the staff report, pertaining to, whether the borrower would be responsible for providing all the notice and just certifying to the town that the public notice was provided and met. Whether council wants to conduct the hearing during council's regular public hearings or set a separate time during the council meeting. Whether the staff obtained some edits to the proposed resolution from the town's bond council, and whether you want to consider those edits. Whether you want to have the borrower or ask the borrower to pay town out-of-pocket expenses that might have been incurred in having town bond council review it, and then to authorize the staff to work out any other procedural type details.
I'll weigh in on a couple of these. My preference would be to put it on a regular council meeting, whether it be a quasi-judicial, if we have a short one coming up. I don't think we do. I think we have 3 items on the next one, so I don't want to put it on another night and then have to head over here. I'd rather just bundle it when we're already here. As far as making any changes to the resolution, I don't think we should do that. All we're being asked to do is hold the public hearing. I don't want to start messing with the resolution. I think that makes us more,
It becomes our
More culpable.
handiwork.
more culpable. Yeah, I really do. So I think it's best for us to just do, if we're going to do this, just do what we're asked, which is the minimum, which is to provide the venue for the public hearing. And I don't think it's right for us to ask the borrower to pay us for the space here, whatever. I mean, we're a community. I mean, we're trying to help out this school. It just seems wrong to me, so I'm not interested in doing that.
How much money would that be? Are we talking, surely we're not talking thousands of dollars, Karen, but what do I know?
We're talking about staff time also.
I understand, but I'm just curious as to, but I think your point's well made about, we're a community.
Expenses incurred to date so far have been less than $1,500.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Let's not penny ante it. The other thing I'd say about the resolution is if the staff feels, particularly legal, feels strongly that there's some things that you've added to the resolution that makes it more clear about responsibility, particularly, and if the applicant, that does not weaken what they have to do legally, then at the time after the public hearing is when maybe that could be revisited if the staff feels very strongly about that. It feels like it may be the right thing, I don't know, I won't be here to vote on it, but it may be that simply can wait, because you really want to meet both criteria, giving us a stronger position, but not putting them in some place that we don't intend to, where they have less, where they don't meet their legal requirement.
And I think rather than us changing and being the
Oh, I
author
hear
of
you.
the resolution, if we have a request to make of the borrower,
And have them do it.
ask the applicant to do it.
Yeah. I think there's a lot to be said for that, because when you deny association or deny culpability, you say, yeah, but we, rewrote it. We're probably overthinking this way.
Well, it's about $25 million, I think, so I don't think you can overthink it. With respect to the indemnification, is that something that happens outside of this process? Where does that fit in?
I think that's an applicant agent question.
Is it part of the resolution? What does that look like?
I'm going to ask the expert in these matters to talk about it.
Good evening, Council. My name is Mike Millier. I'm an attorney with the Ice Miller Law Firm from Columbus, Ohio, and I'm a bond lawyer. So I spend my career working on tax-exempt bond financings for nonprofit organizations and charter schools around the country. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have about this approval process, the hearing, the approval, why you need to do it. Any questions, I'm happy to answer. The specific question, though, about the indemnification agreement, I mean, we can work through a form of an indemnification agreement and have that form, agreed to with the town and its council going into the January meeting. So if you have the hearing and decide to give approval, the approval can be conditioned on execution of that indemnification agreement before the bonds are actually issued.
Thank you.
Good
What I need to
question.
know.
See, timing, remember? I said the gift of timing. There you go.
Other questions, comments, or motion?
I'll make a motion. I make a motion that we call a public hearing on behalf of Triangle Math and Science Academy, and that we direct staff to work with the applicant to request any additions to the resolution that staff thinks are necessary, and also direct staff to find a council meeting, either quasi-judicial or a regular council meeting, at which we can hold this public hearing.
Second.
There's a motion, second, discussion. I'll just say that I'm very uncomfortable, and if we weren't in desperate times with schools, I would not support this, not even close. But because we're not seeing any relief anywhere. We've got
It's a long way down the road.
a long way before we get help. Desperation is the word that keeps coming to mind. So I feel like I have no choice. But it's not in my nature to support a private entity for a public hearing using our staff to create a report, using our taxpayer dollars to, it just goes against everything I'm thinking about. But again, I come back to desperation. So that's where I think we are. Other comments? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Motion carries 6-1.
Got a lot of 6-1 votes tonight.
That moves us to item 6.8, it's a council-initiated request. Councilmember France will explain the item about allowable uses in downtown Cary.
Thank you, Mayor. What Councilmember Bush and I are just asking the council to consider would be directing staff to look at allowing automotive restoration services as an allowable use in the downtown district. I could go through all the history and all the stuff and reasons how come, why for, but really what I'm looking for is to direct staff to see is how this could work, how you pull out just restoration services versus repair and service and other uses. Is it something that we can legally do? Is it something that staff would support? But at the end of the day, we've got a property in downtown. It's an unfortunate situation where the current tenant didn't do their homework, bought a piece of property to start a new business, and has invested quite a bit of money in that facility so far and has quite a bit of ways to go, making some pretty significant improvements inside and out, to find out that they're not supposed to be there. Long story short, if an automotive use in downtown stays vacant or does not operated as an automotive use for 6 months, that site can no longer operate as an automotive use, period. Back when all those discussions and things took place, restoration services didn't exist in downtown. So it really kind of wasn't considered. They are a significantly different use than repair and service. You know, I might work on 30, 40 cars a day. They might work on 30, 40 a year. These are cars that, you know, classics, historics, I mean, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70-year-old vehicles that are brought in, stripped to bare minimum, totally repaired, rebuilt, and $100,000 later, it's a beautiful, beautiful, fully restored vehicle. Some people might call it public art.
Historic.
Historic.
Historic, yeah. If that was the case and they were determined, or they could be an allowable, that they would still have to comply with all the town's guidelines and everything for their facility, you know, site improvements, landscaping, everything to come up to today's standards. So, but again, it's just to direct staff to start looking into this. Go ahead.
Was that a motion?
Well, I haven't made a motion yet. I
Okay.
didn't know if
Ms.
you wanted.
Bush.
Right, when Councilor France called me and I asked him about the property, I said, oh, is that the one with the Volkswagens that are wrapped in plastic? The really cool Volkswagens, that looks really good. Because when you're riding your bike, you see things a little bit longer. And I noticed how much better it looked. I knew exactly the property he was talking about. So I thought it was a great idea for us to bring to council to discuss as a group and decide whether or not we should move forward on this. I also think I'm often heard to say that poor planning on your part does not mean it's an emergency on my part. But this was also, it wasn't like he bought a building and didn't know what was happening there before. It was automotive before, right? There would be, for many people's use, there would be no surprise normally that you wouldn't be able to use this. It was the length of time of 6 months of it, more than 6 months of it being vacant and not being used. And that seemed, kind of capricious.
And my question to you, Mr. France, are you looking to, if it's legal, separate the use of restoration from other automotive uses?
Correct.
Okay. I didn't know if that's where we were going with this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to mess with the agreement that was done back in '03, but so much. But again, this is a different type of use. This is not something I do. This is not something any of the other repair places in downtown do. This is a very specialty type operation and business. So.
And getting to that point even furthermore, it's more out of curiosity than anything. So and it deals with this case, so would you be willing or interested if there's an automotive use that has been vacant? So the owner of that building that's defunct is trying to get another business to come in there and nobody's going to come in there. And this guy comes in and says, hey, I'll buy it and do restoration work here. Would you be interested in having any time before you allow that, if that's legal? If so, I would want staff to look at that too. Does that make sense?
Say that again.
So it's got to be non-automotive, non-restoration until a certain amount of time passes.
6 months.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay.
And then at that time, okay, the guy can't sell the property or do anything with it. Now this guy can do restoration that opens it up for that. I don't know if that's legal even.
It's something they'd probably look into.
Yeah.
Yes, if a different business went out and it stayed vacant for a year and somebody wanted to go in and just say, well, I'm just doing restoration, we know who's doing restoration and who's doing repair,
Right.
It's different. Well, I don't know how staff can carve that use out or whatever.
But you wouldn't object to hearing options with time?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's
I'm kind of looking for options.
Okay.
Kind of like when we do a lot of things, we can do it this way, you can do it that way, or not do it at all, or whatever the options may be.
I think
I'm cool with that.
I also talked to the individual, and I think our intent should be that we don't tip the apple cart on all the plans that we have for downtown.
Right.
And that we have, it happens every so often, you have a unique situation, that's why we have a council. So I think we ought to address it, and the staff should just come up with something that addresses the deed, but at the same time protects what we're trying to do downtown. Does that make sense? I mean, I think we're
I
saying.
think that's where I was trying to go. I just
Yeah.
couldn't say it.
And it's, I also kind of look at this as a pretty cool opportunity for downtown. I mean, these.
I mean, if he
these-
starts restoring Chrysler, I mean, he'll make money.
He wants to stay in business, Jack. No, these types of use businesses and stuff don't exist in a lot of places. I mean, to find good restoration services, you have to really look, and people will trailer cars states away to have somebody do these kinds of things. So, and when I made the comment, $100,000 project, that's no joke.
Wow.
I mean, so it has an opportunity to be a benefit to our downtown in that regard. So.
Okay. Ms. Adcock?
The only thing I was going to add is I'll favor the saying that Ms. Bush said about, lack of planning and emergency, but in this case, I think it was a reasonable assumption that automotive use and an automotive use. I really feel like it's not an attempt to get around anything,
Right.
and I think it's reasonable to look at this. All you're asking for is a look. This council is notorious for being open-minded and taking a look. So I'm going to support Mr. Francis' motion when he makes it.
You ready for that motion?
Make a motion to direct staff to investigate allowing automotive restoration services in the downtown zoning district.
Okay.
Second.
And motion is second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Mayor, before you ask for a motion to adjourn, may I have a point of personal privilege?
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you to make that motion.
I will after I have my point of personal privilege. I feel compelled to make a comment after y'all read that wonderful resolution, because somebody went into my resume and laundry listed every breath I've taken, I think, in my adult life. But here's what I want to say. I have had the good fortune and been blessed to have many opportunities to do things, both as a participant and a leader, but nothing tops the 7 years that I've been able to spend with the Cary Town Council. I just want you to know that. This has been one of the best experiences of my life. Thank you.
How about that motion?
Oh, and I move that we adjourn.
Second.
There's a motion, second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.
This has been a production of Cary TV. Visit the Town of Cary's website at townofcary.org.